You're listening to the Deep Purple Podcast, a fan podcast about one of the most legendary bands of all time, Deep Purple. We take a look at the music, history, and people behind the band Deep Purple and beyond. Welcome to the Deep Purple Podcast, the first and only podcast devoted to one of the greatest bands in rock history, Deep Purple. Today's episode is episode number 108, Black Sabbath, 7th Star. And coming to you from the thundering suburbs of Chicago, I'm your host, Nathan Beaudry.
And coming to you 15 minutes outside of Providence, I'm your co-host, John Noodles Matola.
And from the mouth of the mighty St. Lawrence River, it's the call. Whoa, whoa, whoa. From Rye, Sabbath Buddy Podcast. What's going on, guys?
Right. Thanks for stopping by again.
Hey, welcome.
Hey, I'll insert myself whenever
Welcome.
I can, right?
Exactly. We're doing another
awesome.
Somewhat Black Sabbath related, definitely Black Sabbath related, depending on how you want to view this album. So of course we called in
Black Sabbath related featuring.
Yeah, that's the confusion that we'll get into later. But Rye, if you don't know who Rye is, I don't know who you are. But we are part of the Deep Dive Podcast Network with Mr. Rye, who hosts Sabbath Bloody Podcast and also a new show. So maybe do you want to plug your new show and tell our listeners about that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, the main reason I'm here is because of the Sabbath one, probably, and the Deep Dive Podcast Network that we are a part of. You guys are kind of the flagship, too, I would say.
Oh,
you're the stars of the network, if we're going to use an album tie-in. The Deep Dive Podcast solar system, I guess. I'm like I'm Mercury there, just like spinning around your sun, you know. And then like the other guys, you know.
Well, you're the kind of the ringleader, though. You're
maybe I'm Saturn then.
Yeah, you're the talent agent, scouting new podcasts.
I know Skinner Reconsidered is definitely some garbage planet like Pluto or something. But yeah, so the other podcast, that's a segue to that other podcast. So me and the simple man there, Clay, as he's unveiled his actual name, from Skinner Reconsidered, me and him do a little side project. It's not really a deep dive thing, but North by South is what it's called. And it's kind of been a little fun thing for us to do once a month. We each pick one song. I pick one from Canada. He picks one from America, and we battle them out. Nothing to do with our respect. Well, actually, there's going to be tie-ins to Skinner, of course. They're from America. But I can only pick from Canada, so there's no Sabbath.
So are you sticking to that? You're only picking from your respective countries?
We're gonna try, yeah. I've been kind of given the option to pull the Commonwealth card, which means I can bring in my Sabbaths.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot. That gives you a lot of play. Right?
But I kind of like it because I recently moved back to Canada, as you guys know, and stuff. So I'm reconnecting with my homeland a little bit and sinking into some music. It's really fun. It's we've only done 2 episodes so far, but we're trying to do it first of every month. Hopefully some people can come over there and join in because we want it to be kind of interactive. We want it to be we want people to pick in themes, and it's a lot of fun. It's not a deep dive, but it's a fun dive. It's a nice little paddle. It
kind of is a deep dive. You definitely you've turned me on already to quite a few different artists that I wasn't familiar with, and you
cool.
On your most recent episode, your theme was murder ballads, a term I must confess I was not familiar with until you guys brought it up on your show. And then I realized, there's like this whole, I guess I wouldn't call it a genre, but a style of song called a murder
thematic
ballad.
kind of thing. Yeah, that's kind of what it's about. So we have a random generator that picks those, but people can also pick themes. We have like a voice message thing that we figured out. I don't know. You guys use Anchor, right? The podcast.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
I didn't realize until I was listening to another podcast, and I was like, people can leave voice messages. That's kind of cool. So we'll try to incite that, but I don't know how much interaction we'll get on that at front. But
I'm afraid to turn that on.
Yeah. You don't know what you're gonna get.
There's definitely the potential for a lot of abuse. I know I've heard some podcasts that have that turned on and it's been heavily abused, but I guess that
Oh, really?
there's probably kind of a sweet spot of number of listeners where it's fine, and then if you go over that threshold, it becomes an absolute disaster.
It would probably be really fun too. Anyway, we'd have fun with any kind of spam that we get.
Well, awesome. Well, we're excited to have you back on the show once again. Before we go on, though, what's noodles about? Is it that you just don't like noodles, or that you do like noodles? Like, what's the, what's the deal with noodles?
I had some noodles earlier.
I
I
like
love how you're just calling it in at this point. I love
yeah,
it.
you're really,
Yeah.
really, you're phoning it in. Doesn't
I'm
even
just not trying. I'm not trying anymore. I've gotten to the level of podcast notoriety where I'm just lazy and phoning it in.
Yeah, I had some. He used to research these elaborate facts about Rhode Island, and I was just like, I had some noodles before, so that's my nickname now.
It's John Rick
Last
Rubin
week I had a
Matola,
banana.
just phoning it in from the couch. Yeah, do it like you guys used to do it. Do like that old album that was awesome. Yeah, do that. I'll be over here just on the couch. Guru.
Well, before we move on, if you want to
I'll
support,
try.
if you want to support the Deep Purple podcast, there's a few ways to do it. One is you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. 2, you can buy some merch at our Etsy store. Just shipped out a mug this morning, so the mugs are flying out of here. So get them while the getting's good. And 3rd, you become a patron on Patreon or via PayPal. Join the Hall of Heroes of people that donate to the show. For what do you spend on a cup of coffee or a fast food in a week? Just take a tiny fraction, $1. Send that if you're getting value out of the show. If we help entertain you during your commute, then just throw us as little as $1. We'd be happy to have it and invest it back into the show.
I spent $25 on Dairy Queen today. So
$25. That's a lot of Dairy Queen.
Whoa.
well, I had it delivered by Uber.
Oh, okay. There you go. That makes sense. Was it melted?
We're in lockdown. No, it was good. They did a good job. Yeah. It was just raining. I didn't want to walk.
So I did get a message. There's a patron news. So we reverted back to JJ Stenard for anyone that's following the JJ Stenard controversy. Came in as
Really?
JJ Stenard at the funny name tier, and then moved to Smelly Body, which he said he wanted to be called, and then determined that he was like, no, I was just kidding. So he's going to go back to JJ Stenard. But he also sent us a note when I said, do you really want to be called Smelly Body? Didn't respond before the last show, so he was called Smelly Body on the last show. Sorry, JJ. But you're back to JJ Stenard. And he says, no, I'm kidding. I said, tell you what, though, something you might find very interesting. My dad, Terry, who passed away a couple years back, was a drummer, and one of the records he played on was a 1997 album by Young and Moody, Bob Young and Mickey Moody, which was produced by Roger Glover. Dad was also in the band Kokomo with bassist Alan Spenner, who worked with David Coverdale and played on the 1970 Jesus Christ Superstar album. Small world, eh? Love the podcast. Keep up the good work. So, wow. Thanks, JJ Stenard. We have rock and roll royalty among our Patreon ranks now. So.
There you go. He can hook you up with Coverdale.
Yeah,
we even have deep dive patrons.
Next time you're talking to Mickey Moody or Glover or Coverdale or any of them, just throw it in there. Say, hey, why don't you go on the Deep Purple podcast? We'd love to.
Nice word, yeah.
We'll review the next Whitesnake album with Coverdale. That would be great. I shouldn't call him Coverdale.
Coverdale.
Last time I called him Coverdale, he's like, Coverdale. Which he has every right to do, because I have no business calling him Coverdale. Like, who am I?
Like you're in the locker room at school. Hey, Coverdale, come here.
Coverdale, yeah. It's like you call your buddies by their last
your
name.
high school buddy.
Those Mark III guys are sensitive on the socials, aren't they?
Well, they're the only ones on there. Imagine what the Mark II guys would be, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows how they'd be? At the thanking our patrons at the executive level, we've got the $20 Shades of Deep Pockets tier. We have Ryan M. At the $15 Highball Shooter tier, we have Alan Ain't Too Proud to Beg. The Turn It Up to $11 tier, Frank Thielgard Mortensen, Clay Wambacher, and Mikkel Steen. And at the $10 Someone Came tier, Steve Seaborg of NameOnAnything.com and AllTheWorldsAstage.net, Jeff Bryce, Gerald Kelly, Victor Campos, and Richard Fusey. Thank you to all of you for your support. And then, of course, you can check out deepdivepodcastnetwork.com, which I keep threatening to actually do something with, but right now it's kind of a landing page.
Hey, you're a stud for getting it together ananyway. And
Yeah,
the Twitter is good too.
But you made some awesome graphics for it that I actually have to
I'm just having fun with that.
up
Yeah.
on there. It's looking great. There's also a Twitter handle for Deep Dive Podcast Network. Forget what it is, but you'll figure it out.
Deep Dive Pod Net, I believe.
Yeah, something like that sounds
Something
good.
like that.
I'll buy that.
Yeah, you'll find it.
And yeah, this week I believe is my episode of Gain It for Riffs. When you're hearing this, should be out. So check it out. Check my sloppy guitar playing as I go over some of my some favorite riffs I picked out of a hat to go over with the guys. Those are some great guys over there.
Yeah, that show's great, and it's great to have those guys on board with the Maiden A to Z.
Yes.
We added the 2 new members. I don't know if you mentioned it last episode or.
Yes, we mentioned Hawkbinge and Maiden A to Z. We're up to 8.
Yeah. Up to 8.
8
yeah.
members.
See, we're rounding out the solar system. It's getting there. How many planets are in the solar system again?
Yeah,
well, I don't know. I'm getting all celestial.
There's 8. So your dream of making you can make Skinner reconsidered the Pluto when we get one more podcast.
Yeah.
Say he's been declassified.
Yeah.
So we got one, before we get into it, we got one podcast review. This one is coming in, of course, as we're going through the old archives here, from the UK. This is from May of 2020. So about a year ago. Gus McCrae, 5 stars, the subject line highway stars. And here's what Gus says. Deep Purple in rock is where it started for me. I built a record collection by exploring the influences of the best hard rock band of them all. Purple were head and shoulders above Zeppelin and Sabbath. Sorry, Rye. And the rest. And these guys get it. Really enjoying hearing the U.S. perspective on Deep Purple from presenters who understand there is more than smoke on the water. And a year later to the party, there are over 50 episodes for me to catch up on. Great stuff. Now over 100. Hopefully Gus is still listening. Thank you, Gus. We appreciate that. And yeah, if I'm reading your reviews, drop me a line and let me know. And hopefully you people are still actually listening to the show, as it took us a while to figure out how to get this country thing figured out.
Yeah, you'll probably hit mine from Ireland like pretty soon.
I did see yours in there.
Oh, did you? You skipped it.
I haven't gotten into it yet, but I've seen it. It's short and to the point. It's a good one. Well, yeah,
I can't even remember.
We'll roll that. It's funny. It stuck out pretty easy. I think you probably used your name too, which made it easy. Okay, so here we are. We haven't caught up with Hughesy, I feel like, in a while, right? When's the last time we talked about Hughes? Well, maybe last episode, but when we dived into anything really seriously Hughes related.
I think it was Hughes Thrall, right?
It might have been.
I think so.
But I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember.
Hughes Thrall episode.
That would have been kind of what he did right before, right? Was that right before 7?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably about.
Yeah, I feel like that was our last Hughes episode.
Very well could have been. But Hughes, notoriously did kind of bebopped around and did a few little things in the 80s, but he was pretty much, by his own admission, says he does not remember the 80s. So,
right.
And this would kind of fall into that, based on what we'll get into too. There's definitely some contradictions in what Iommi says versus what Hughes says, and between the amount of substances being consumed on both parties, who knows who's right and who's wrong, and everything. But Rye, do you want to kick us off and kind of tell us about, like, I guess, what's your background with this album? What do you remember about it?
My background with this album is a lot of, when I did the podcast, a lot of pretty much up to, like, I didn't even really listen to the Dio stuff as a kid. Like, I was like Aussie guy the whole way.
Yep.
So I kind of saved as much as I could. I did kind of listen ahead. Like, when I started doing the podcast, I listened to some of the Dio stuff a little bit, got familiar with it. So it didn't, like, throw me for a huge loop. But I had actually heard from 7 Star, I think I heard like one of the faster ones, Danger Zone or something like that, was in a weird file that I found on file sharing that said like the supergroup Deep Purple crossed over with Sabbath, and it had that and had Trashed. So it was just kind of some random
Yeah,
LimeWire
back then you
file
didn't
back
even
in the
know
day.
what to believe in.
Yeah,
It's
some
Black
horrible
Sabbath
bit rate.
featuring
Yeah.
whatever. It's like, this even
Yeah.
really Black Sabbath?
I probably mentioned that on the Born Again episode too. So that was like in my head, it happened, but I didn't really know that it was like full on albums. I thought they were one-off kind of things. So yeah, arriving there obviously through the podcast. I approached it. I listened to a bit of Hughes' solo stuff around the same time. Like, got a good vibe for him, because even the Mark III purple stuff and the Mark IV, I was familiar with it, of course, but I didn't know the stuff before that, like the trapeze and all that. And insane, his raw talent at the beginning, right from the get-go. The trapeze stuff is unreal. Like Medusa is like one of the most like Sabbathy songs on there. Can't remember what it was called. It was like The Law or something like that. But there's one song on there that's like straight up like Black Sabbath, the song.
Oh yeah.
Has those vibes.
We made a couple of those comparisons.
Yeah. And they're just a
Sequel
shit hot,
is one of
amazing jam band. Like, I actually managed to get what's we're the band, you're the party, or whatever, that LP. Is that what it's called? I don't know. It should be called that.
We're the music. You're just.
You're just.
You're the music. We're just. You're the music. We're the music.
Who
You're
even
just the
knows?
band.
Yeah, some coded thing, but
you're thinking of, I think, Jury, right? Is that the song?
Jury. There we go.
Yeah.
The Law. Jury. I Am the Law.
Yeah, that's
Judge Dredd.
I was looking through the tracks, so like, which one is he talking about?
It's an Anthrax song, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a cover, Anthrax cover. Yeah.
I Am the Law.
Totally.
You're just the band.
And you're just the band. I am the law.
I am the law. You're just the band.
There we go. Nailed it.
Yeah, so I'm really familiar with his shit, is what I'm trying to get at. But yeah, we'll talk about it as we go through the tracks. I'm not going to totally burn, but there is a lot of stuff that I don't like about this album, mostly based on the era that it came out and the condition that Hughes was in. Because like I said, seeing it, going through it all at the same time, going back to the original stuff, seeing that talent and seeing where it was at that point. I know a lot of people are like drink the Hughes Kool-Aid like right through. They're just like voice of rock, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. His mixing in here is sometimes it's a little, yeah, we'll get through it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what you probably hear is an album that's not as cohesive as Born Again, and much because of how it's a bit of a patchwork. It was kind of shoehorned into being something it wasn't trying to be, and we'll get into all that later.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when you talk to people about this album, when you haven't really like dove into it, and people give you like a little primer for it, they often do the same shit where it's like, it was supposed to be this, it was not supposed to be that, and like that stuff for me, that kind of screws with how I listen to something a little too much. So yeah, I didn't have the greatest experience with it, but I've come around to it. I've definitely like picked out. I can kind of separate the parts that I like from the parts that I don't like, and there's a lot of Hughesy parts that I like. He's not the main issue with this album for me. So yeah, that's where I arrived at anyway. But it's still, it's still Purple Sabbath, right? It's kind of a unit in itself there. Those two outliers and Born Again and this. So I had to come back for this.
Sure. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Balance it out.
Yeah. Those both. Just taking another singer from. If only Coverdale had joined Black Sabbath for one album, wouldn't that be amazing? Get all three.
Yeah.
So John, what's your what do you remember about this album? Because I remember hearing about this album and Born Again from you back when we were kids. So what do you remember about discovering this album?
I don't have much of a background, I think, with this album. In terms of like being into it, like I was really into Ozzy, Sabbath first, and then Dio, of course, and then it was like, to me it was just all the rest. I would see like this album cover and all the other ones, and I'd see pictures in the the magazines that I read of like Tony Iommi, and then like 17 other people I didn't know who they were. So I'm like, okay, I have no interest in this. So I just basically, I was just like, yeah, I'm all set. So I never really got into this until like maybe later on. I can't even tell you when. Also because I didn't really have any interest in that type of music. I felt it was or what I conceived that type of music to be, which I felt like, oh, it's probably watered down. It's probably not what Sabbath is supposed to be. Like Rye was saying, like it was supposed to have been this or that or the other. And so I think that that's kind of almost everybody was guilty of having that kind of like color their perception of what, the album. But when I did give it a listen, I thought that, right now there's probably like one or two songs on it that I occasionally will like listen to, just be like, I think they're really good. And then the rest of it is just like, I haven't really gotten into it, but I thought the production wasn't bad. I mean, coming off Born Again, I just remember it was a lot clearer. I don't know if it was, just not knowing the whole album inside and out. I don't know if it was better, worse, patchwork, the songs, whatever. But coming into it years later, it sounds like an impressive lineup of people. Hughes, Eric Singer, Jeff Nichols. All sorts of connections, rock heavyweights in there. But yeah, not really much of a connection so much to the album, but it's like I said, it's one that I have like one or two songs that I really like, and sometimes I'll put them on.
Well, I think if you look at Black Sabbath's, the members of the band, it's fairly stable up until about this point, and then for the next
right,
basically until present, right? It's just all over the place. You've got obviously the four original members for 10 years or so. Then Dio jumps in and Appice jumps in, and then Bill Ward comes back and Ian Gillan comes in as a singer. So it's pretty, it's just a few little change ups. That's nothing crazy, but then it's just, this kind of triggers a massive, just revolving door of different members. And it's just, like you said, it's really hard to keep track of it. I'm glad I had Rye's show to listen to it and guide me through it, because if you look at the timeline, it's crazy.
Yeah, and around that time too, a lot of stuff gets reported a lot more, I find, because by the time you get to the 80s, the Kerrangs kind of become gossip rags, and Sabbath kind of they almost become like presented as a joke. So even they'll take little things where they just have a little audition with somebody, and then they'll line up a photo shoot while they're having the audition, and the guys have to line up and have a photo with fucking Dave Donato there. Yeah. And then there's this big cover feature with this ridiculous looking hair farm in front of them, like the new singer. And then they do like a half-ass interview with like a drunk Bill Ward and publish that in there. And like, it kind of becomes almost like they're a joke because they're the older dinosaurs at that point. That's the vibe I get. I didn't live through it, obviously. I'm looking back in retrospect, but when I do read like the Kerrang articles, especially, and stuff like that, they're definitely taking the piss out of them all the time. And I think starting at Born Again, just because that was kind of we got into it. We didn't really get into the tour, but there's a lot of fuckery there as far as like the presentation of the band. It's glorious. We all love it. But at the time, Spinal Tap came out right around that time too. And it's all based on that. So like a bit of that happened, so I see that the album doesn't get a fair shake in certain ways like that, but there's a lot of people that are too defensive about it, who will say like, you have to listen to it and ignore that or kind of things. But when I'm actually doing that, like you still have to compare it. It's Tony Iommi, man. Like, and regardless of if it's called Black Sabbath or not, even if it was an Iommi solo project, I'm going to compare it to his work in Sabbath. So it's not like you need to look at it as not a Sabbath album and it's brilliant. Judge it for what it is. And that's kind of how I approached it. But of course, I didn't live in that time, so I was just a little baby in diapers. So what the fuck do I know, really? But I find there's a lot of that with this album. Like, people will latch onto and defend it because it's something because it was supposed to be something else. And like, that's not a really good defense. Listen to the songs, and that's what we'll do today. We'll go through it track by track.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's a brief history going into this, and there's probably enough material to do a Born Again tour or a Seventh Star tour with Rye in the future at some point.
Patreon exclusives. You give me a cut, and we'll do Patreon exclusives.
I'll give you a cut. Here's a check for $11. But Ian Gillan obviously wasn't going to stick around. The rumors were already circulating that he was going back to Deep Purple, and indeed, of course, he did. Bill Ward was doing his kind of wavering back and forth. He was still battling depression and mostly drug and drink addiction, so he was kind of back and forth too. And after Gillan left, they were kind of looking for an unknown for vocals, and one of the guys they found was Ron Keel. So he's one of the guys you'll see brought up in these long lists of Black Sabbath members, because he was a member for like 3 weeks or something. But it's funny because you've got all these. There's all this debate in the Deep Purple camp. Like, was Joe Satriani, was he ever really a member of Deep Purple? And it's
God, the what ifs, man. Yeah.
Like,
did you guys do a whole episode on what ifs? I remember you doing that. Well, and I was like, don't go down that road, guys.
Yeah, that's not even a what if. That's just like a fight that people have. But with Black Sabbath, if you want to, the main argument against Satriani, obviously, is that he never did an album with them, even though he was with them for a good chunk of time, fulfilling their tour obligations. But if you look at Black Sabbath's lists of members, some of the people are debated whether they even are members or whether they even ever did anything with the band other than maybe talk to them. So it's definitely a little bit more of a murky situation with them than it is with Deep Purple.
Yeah, for sure. And when you look at some of the stuff like Jeff Feinhold, his whole arc, that's one that we can kind of discuss now, because I think he actually ended up doing some demos that became 7-star stuff way earlier, like back in '84, between Born Again and this. But his whole deal was like, he was, you guys would know better, you're the Jesus Christ Superstar dudes, but he was basically wasn't he like the touring?
Yeah, he was the original Broadway Jesus.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's really all I really know him from. I've got
which is funny that two guys that played Jesus were like Black Sabbath. They're related to Black Sabbath somehow, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I think that they like that association. But he ended up there's a whole story arc with him that you can follow, where same thing, like kind of just like it's a little claim to fame that he had that edition, that moment with them. It's gonna, if he brings it up in an interview, especially him coming from a very strong religious background, he kind of became almost a televangelist kind of style dude. He would go on shows and be like, I was lost and I was in Black Sabbath, this evil band, and I found he pushed it into his whole MO there.
And he made it seem like it was much more of he was much more of a member than
he was much more of a presence. Yeah, when honestly they were probably just jamming with him, and they were probably he was put with them because he was this Broadway star. So they're just like, hey, we tried out Michael Bolton.
Yeah.
So let's bring in this guy too.
Yeah, as Michael Bolton probably doesn't talk about as much as Jeff Feinhold does.
He doesn't need to. He's a stud.
Exactly, because he is a guy that most people know. So there's a lot of stuff going on at this time. Bill decides in order to be sober, he needs to leave. And Eric Singer was recruited to take his place, who was previously playing with Lita Ford. And obviously, John, Eric Singer has you would be the resident Eric Singer expert, I would assume. But he hadn't done much before this, right? I think it was his first recorded album.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. I can't remember. I know that he was in his early days, he was with Lita Ford, Sabbath, Alice Cooper.
And
those
Badlands,
are like some of the big names.
Was Badlands after Kiss or
after this? Yeah, and it was before. That was 88 or no, it was 89 with Ray Gillan, fresh out of this whole thing, and then to Kiss, and then I think he was doing some of his own stuff, or maybe some hired gun things, and then pretty much back to Kiss after that.
So it's funny, you got Badlands splinters off from two guys from Black Sabbath and then a guy from Ozzy. And I don't know who the fourth guy is.
Yeah.
You guys might know, but I'm not.
He was
Greg Chason?
Chason, I think.
Yeah, Chason came from. I don't know. He was in Steeler actually, so there's a Ron Keel connection there, I think. Yeah, but he ended up he auditioned for Ozzy. He auditioned for Ozzy, and that's how him and Jake met. So there's a whole
okay.
thing there. Like he was
Yeah.
basically going to
So
be
it's
on
basically
basis for a
those
while. Yeah.
connections.
Yeah, it's all in the
Yeah.
family.
So those
yeah,
were all
for
those
sure.
connections. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it gets pretty incestuous.
it does.
So Geezer also decides he's out. He had been boozing pretty hard and decided he wanted to kind of clean up a little bit too. And then Tony, I guess at this point, realizes this isn't really black. I'm the only guy that's got any claim to Black Sabbath. I want to do his initial idea is kind of do an album, a solo album where he gets different singers for every track, right? Some of the names bandied about were Dio, Halford, Coverdale, Plant, Hughes, all of these guys that he'd been considering.
All the names that he says in every chapter of his book
Yeah.
that he's going to play with. Yeah,
exactly. Although he could do it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. But those
guys
are his
would all-
bros. Those are his drinking buddies. Yeah.
Well, I guess the only one he never did anything with Plant, I don't think, right? But
I don't think so.
or
No.
Coverdale, although that would be really interesting to hear.
Yeah.
But so he decides he wants to do this. Long story short, he decides he's just going to use Glenn for all the songs. And then there's this kind of debate. Glenn says he wrote some of the songs. Nichols says he wrote some of the lyrics. Glicksman says they wrote the lyrics on some of the songs. Iommi, so there's not really I haven't found a consistent corroborated story about who wrote the lyrics on what. So we'll go through each.
Bob Daisley wrote it all.
That's probably it.
He wrote every album.
And they just screwed him over again.
Yeah. Actually, that's the next album. Never mind.
Yeah, he wanted to get screwed by a different Arden, so
yeah.
So yeah, so it's kind of all over the
Oh,
place. And they're saying it's funny. Glenn in an interview says that Glicksman was having some. They're all basically saying everyone else is having drug problems, but they're also admitting it themselves. So Glenn is saying Iommi and Glicksman were undergoing a pretty big drug problem at the time. Glicksman saying Iommi and Hughes were. They're all saying they were. So there's a lot of inconsistencies, even though this is kind of well documented stuff. It's really hard to pin down exactly what happened. But it definitely was a lot of cocaine going around at the time. And who wrote exactly what, who knows, but it's mostly credited to Iommi. Even lyrics, which is odd because he's not a lyrics guy really.
Yeah, that might be one of those Aussie situations.
Yeah,
I know the funny thing, actually, the back of the cover, it does say this is the one I think that has like it says the player Tony Iommi, players Eric Singer, blah blah blah. Like it's got this separation like there, and then the featuring and the cover, and yeah, there's a little bit of High on Charlie kind of Overlord vibe to the whole shebang. And I mean, we won't get into too much of the gritty details. If you want to do that, go to Sabbath Bloody podcast, because I got a lot of shit for that episode just because of the way that the stuff I had to bring up about Iommi and the way that he was at that time. Yeah, it was a rough time for him. And I mean, obviously he's a sweetheart now and everything. And but some of those leader forward years and stuff.
Yeah, there were some abusive allegations, and it's not surprising given the amount of drugs that were being consumed at the time. Even someone that's a gentle, nice guy who could turn into a monster if they're abusing too many substances. So
yeah, and it's important to not overlook it, because I mean, both of them speak about it in their books. It's out there, the story is there. It's one of those things that a lot of people do not want to look at, or I've gotten some comments from people that are just don't like the fact, like, they see Iommi in a certain light. I get it, but there's no reason that you shouldn't look into that stuff. But I mean, it is pretty dark and it is drug fueled. That's the main proprietor, I think, for a lot of this fuckery that goes on throughout this entire tour that follows this and all that. So
yeah, it's hard to hear the truth about maybe what some of your heroes may have done, and but you have to also understand the time and the amount of drugs that were being consumed, that they're
and the age that they're at, and
they can do some unsavory things, and that's I mean, luckily they for the most part, most of these guys made it through it and turned things around, which is really important part.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So on this this album rather, we've got Dave the Beast Spitz on bass, completely new lineup. We've got Eric Singer on drums, Tony Iommi, obviously. Jeff Nichols is kind of one of the few holdouts from the previous, and he's kind of getting like actual credits now and being put in the photo
Yeah.
shoot and
And
not
I
being
think a
kind of
huge
cast
part of the
aside.
writing process at this point too, because I mean, it was really him and Iommi. That's one thing I got from Lita's book. She said that they used to lock themselves away and like just write and do Charlie, and yeah. So like he's definitely not as behind the scenes as he has been in all the, especially the Dio stuff. You didn't even know he's there. I had to double check.
Right. Yeah, exactly. He was even there. Wasn't he even there in the late Aussie stuff? Did he do some stuff on like Never Say Die or?
I think,
Or was,
well, they had Jeff Woodorf for like Tech X and that
okay.
stuff. So, and I've actually been listening to some bootlegs from around that time, and like the keys are really forward, and that guy can rip, man.
Yeah.
Gerald Woodorf, yeah, like his keys are amazing on some of those like 75, 76 bootlegs and stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, it's a bit of a gray area there. I'm not sure. He might have been on some of the Never Say Die tour thing, but I do know that he's kind of part of the whole, like he's Iommi's right hand man. They would basically dress alike, and he was like his mini me.
Well, and Hughes made some comments too, and I don't have them in front of me, but he definitely had some. I was reading some interviews with Hughes where he was saying, kind of doing that thing where he's like, "Listen, I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but Jeff Nichols was like, he's basically Tony's buddy, and sometimes there's like a buddy around that shouldn't be there, but he's there because he's friends with it. He's like, I'm not saying anything, but I'm just saying the only reason he was around is because he's friends with Tony. But I'm not saying anything. I just want to make it clear." And he just kept saying it again and again. It's like, okay.
Yeah, a couple of people have said that too. Mick Wall in his books, he always takes the piss out of Jeff. He used to say that because he'd be there, obviously side stage, next to him while he's playing, and they'd be playing and he'd be playing along. So all he'd be hearing is like this guy doing like shitty Sabbath covers on his keyboard, and he'd just be like, "What is going on with this band?" And like the Born Again cycles and stuff.
And then we've got Glicksman, Jeff Glicksman, producing the album, who would later go on and produce almost half of Paul Stanley's solo album, or actually had previously produced over half of Paul Stanley's solo album. And he'd also worked with Kansas, Gary Moore, and Saxon. So pretty esteemed producer. But it seems there were a lot of cocaine abuse going on by the producers at this time too. This is probably the peak, or just coming off of the peak of that sort of behavior. So you get a lot of, although it's funny because with all the drug use involved in this, you get a kind of a cleaner, better sounding mix than on Born Again.
That's true. Yeah. You can't say that they're not professionals as far as the execution in the studio. There's some pretty solid takes.
Exactly. Okay. So that brings us to the album cover itself. Not as much to talk about as we have previously with, say, Born Again, but
we spent an hour on the cover on that one, I think.
Yeah, a little too much, but here we go. Here's the cover of Seventh Star. You've got a forlorn-looking Tony Iommi off in the desert, looking sad maybe he's sad because he lost some of his fringe. He didn't have enough fringe on that jacket. I don't know what it is. But
Will there ever be a rainbow?
Well, actually, you know what? Is that even the right cover? I think that's the
Yeah. It looked right to me.
Well, it didn't. Yeah, it didn't have the I have this version here, which is crap. This one's a little goofy looking, but it's got the it's like somehow like edited, but it's got the actual proper Black Sabbath featuring Tony Iommi, which is the original cover.
Oh, I see. Yeah, the reissues they knocked that off.
There we go.
Yeah.
So although Tony looks a little weird in that picture, but so it's going to be a Tony solo album. They decide, hey, let's do a Black Sabbath featuring Tony Iommi, and then later releases it just says Black Sabbath. They don't even try anymore to cover it up. But it's got this engraving around the edge here, which is this image here. It's an engraving by a Renaissance artist, a German Renaissance artist known as Lucas Cranach the Elder, which is pretty cool.
The Elder?
The Elder, yes.
Is that his? That's like his PhD.
Exactly. Yeah.
Elder.
So he did this engraving on copper, and it's called The Temptation of Saint Anthony. And I found this this guy CRJ2 wrote on this website genius.com. I don't even know if it's true, but the guy seems like he knows what he's talking about. He says on the back cover you can see the copper plate engraving print by the 16th century German painter. The engraving was called The Temptation of Saint Anthony and shows, of course, the story of the saint in the desert. And he's saying that on the cover of this, Iommi is standing saddened as a parallel to his namesake, Saint Anthony, standing alone in the desert of Egypt. So it sounds pretty good to me. I'm buying it.
I'd buy it too.
I don't
Sounds
know
good.
if that's intentional, but it's pretty good. It's a good story.
Yeah.
Then you've got the back cover is just a little bit more of a close-up on the man himself. He's really the only one getting any cover front or back.
He's reading the set list.
Yeah. He's like, wait, what song are we doing first?
Sphinx, I wanted to call it The Guardian. Oh, I see. You put it in parentheses. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we'll do both. I'm no stranger to that. So the guy who did the art direction for this he did a bunch of covers for Depeche Mode, Dio, Rough Cut, T-Rex, Isaac Hayes, Janet Jackson, and surprisingly Smashing Pumpkins. This guy was in the business for a while, and the photography, additional photography by Kevin Stapleton. So yeah, it's a pretty low key kind of cover.
It's not bad.
I mean, what are you guys thinking about this cover? Any thoughts? Anything we need to discuss?
Well, I'm never really a fan of the artist actually being on the cover. It looks more like it's a great shot. I like the desert and stuff. It's cool. Like it would make a great like inside the booklet shot or like a gatefold shot of like yeah. It looks like it just has a vibe. I love the engraving stuff. That's dope. And actually on the tape, the cassette, it's just the engraving with the red. Like it doesn't have a picture of Iommi, and it's really cool. Yeah, it's really solid. Yeah. So it just having them on the cover, it just seems like it's some Michael Bolton AOR thing or something.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, like it just feels like that kind of thing, like a Paul Simon record or something. It seems like something my dad would have in his record collection, or more. Actually, my mom would. The stash is fucking killer though, man. Oh shit, he's got it just manicured to perfection.
Just right. Yeah.
Pure doom.
Look at that.
Yeah. I agree. It is kind of. I think that the photo of Iommi in the center there, it always, to me, this album never really jumped out at me. It just seemed like it seemed like they were just kind of giving up. And the word is, I think that this is from the I forget which song it is. We'll get into it in a little bit, but this is an extra shot. Basically, they shot this when they were doing the video for what song would it have been? No Stranger to Love?
Oh, maybe. I don't remember them being in the desert, but
yeah, they had this. They basically took this picture and then they just kind of slapped it on there. It always seemed kind of, I don't know. It didn't really speak to me. Like for all the reasons you said, it seemed like
yeah. And what's going on around the outside? Like the vibe of the etching is awesome. I like the typography is pretty dope too. I like that kind of more horror style. It looks like a Hammer horror kind of thing. They could really just play it up that way.
Or if they had that photograph but just take Iommi out of the photograph, put something else in there. Like
yeah. Well, then it would look like Nebraska by the Boss. But yeah, same color scheme too. Better album though. But yeah, like it's very it's of its time in a way, because I think a lot of people the image was going forward at that point. I mean, this is when they had the MTV. I mean, they did videos for Trash and stuff like that, but that was like some kind of trauma low budget thing that they did. I don't know how much rotation those got, but this is like, No Stranger to Love is like a very polished hair metal kind of thing.
I mean, if you look at this cover and the back cover, I mean, it definitely looks like when I heard that this was supposed to be a Tony Iommi solo album, you can definitely tell they went for the whole singer-songwriter like type of like vibe, like album cover. Like if this was Tony's solo album, like a proper, then I think that the back and the front album cover would be really appropriate, actually, because it's just like you said, is like that kind of like, you know, Michael Bolton, like, you know, AOR, this is the singer songwriter, you know, type of thing. Like we're presenting like they package it like that. It would have been, you know, better that way. But it's a Black Sabbath album, or Black Sabbath featuring Tony Iommi. It's just kind of misses the mark. But if you,
you're just like, get out of the way, Tony. You got some cool dragons going on behind you. Like, this is
but if you forget,
all there, all the artwork is there. It just,
yeah,
it just needs to move.
But if you forget about that, then it's like it's probably would be more appropriate for like a solo album. Somebody just kind of,
for sure,
the artist standing there, just kind of looking off to the side type thing. But it doesn't really land it being a Sabbath album, and it kind of like takes away from the validity of it, because you're just like, oh yeah, like featuring Tony, I get it, you know.
Yeah.
So AKA actually Tony's solo album with a bunch of other people. You know, so it's like it's one of the things that kind of you know, ruined it, I think. But you know,
it's not going to jump off the shelf like Born Again did, right? Like it's not going to catch your attention,
right?
It's going to sink in,
right?
And if you know who Iommi is, then you're going to be like, oh, cool, Iommi, yeah. But I mean, he is identifiable. Like there's no reason why he can't be on the cover, as far as like, you know, it's not like he's a nobody, but it just, it doesn't work in the context of it. And the fact that there's some cool artwork mixed in there that they could just bring forward.
Yeah, probably maybe the weakest Sabbath album cover to this point, I would say. But but again,
Sabotage, like some people love it, some people hate it. I love it, but
I love it too. It's one of those. It's kind of like Born Again. It is bad, but it's good. And an album cover doesn't have to be like perfectly executed. It has to just jump out at you, and it has to say something. And
that one jumps out.
Even if the thing it's saying is ridiculous.
On Bill Ward's pants, come on.
That's what jumps out is Nibby's bulge there. He's gonna pull out the cucumber wrapped in the tinfoil.
Oh boy. All right. So I guess before we get into the tracks, we've got to thank some people, and that's our core level patrons at the $6.66 tier. It's vacant now. Richard Fusey upgraded. So if you want to join at $6.66, this is your opportunity to own that tier. Jump in. The $5.99 nice price tier, we have Fielding Fowler and Dr. Jill Brees. Fielding offering today that he's honored to share that with the doctor. He created that tier himself, but he's glad the good doctor can join him. The $5 money lender tier, we have Greg Sealby, John Covery, Arthur Smith, sorry Arthur, German Heindel, Adrian Hernandez, Kenny Wymore, Jesper Alman, Alexei the Perfect Stranger Slepikoff. See, I can get that one, but Arthur Smith throws me right off. James North, Mark Hodgetts, Kev Roberts, and heyo, patron upgrade, Will Porter, upgrading to the $5 money lender tier. Thank you, Will, for your continued support of the show. And at the $3 Nobody's Perfect tier, Peter Gardot, Ian DeRosier, Mark Roback, Anton Glaving, Andrew Meyer, Duncan Leask, and of course, Stuart McCord sipping his whiskey by the fire. Thank you to all of you for your generous support of the Deep Purple podcast. And with that, we have but one more task to perform, and that is to get into these tracks. Are you guys ready to go in for the kill here?
Let's do it.
You ready?
Gallop away.
John's readying himself. All right, here we go. In for the kill.
They needed a music video with like a Tommy gun at the beginning.
It's kind of a terrible snare sound, but when the guitar comes in, it makes you forget about it.
Yeah, good tone on the Iommi as always.
It was a cool way to start the album.
Catches your attention, yeah. So one thing, so many layered vocals, huh? Like that's something that jumps out, like thinking about it in a Sabbath way, because there's a lot of studio vocal there. Sounds like he's got like, yeah, it's Hughesy, so he's hitting it, but.
Well, and it's at the core of it, of course, is a really Black Sabbath Iommi sounding riff, which sounds great, but the production and the vocals are definitely taking you a little bit. It's a different sound. Whereas I feel like Born Again to me sounded like the original Sabbath with Gillan singing. This sounds like Iommi with a bunch of different guys, which it is. So
yeah. That's not a very Sabbathy riff.
Well, yeah,
though.
the sound is.
That's very like it's so.
Yeah, sound is a lot
more Priest. It's very like chuggy, don't you find?
Yeah.
And precise. Like it doesn't have that. It's one of the things with Iommi is like I'm obsessed with his right hand because he's left-handed, but like the vibrato.
Yep.
It doesn't even creep into that riff, you know. It's machine-like. It's different. That's very bouncy. Now that's Iommi.
Now you know who that is.
Yeah. Very wah heavy.
He's definitely bringing it. I mean, it's a classic Iommi solo.
Oh yeah, the solo in this song is awesome. I love it. It's got a little bit of jokester, you know, Van Halen there.
Yep.
I mean, it sounded really good.
Yeah. These harmonies, though, just like too much.
Yeah,
it's constant.
Like
it's like he's at points it would be okay. He's just we'll talk about it later. A lot of wah.
I mean, at this point, I feel like when it's just Hughes solo vocals, you're hearing kind of a Black Sabbath with Glenn Hughes at the helm feel. But then when it goes to the chorus, it's a different animal.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Right here, you can hear the character in his voice. You know, the other one, it just sounds like cha cha. Yeah, that's exactly right, Nate. Like, I think I get lost in a bit of the doubling, just as far as like hearing the character in his voice, because there's just too much going on and smoothing it out. I know it's an approach, and I know it's something that takes a lot of skill. It's very tech, but as far as what I've seen from other Sabbath, of course, like Ozzy, and Ozzy does some doubling, but you always hear the character in his voice. Dio too. You can just tell in this, like it feels like a studio vocal line. And it might just be a personal taste. Well, it is just a personal taste. I like a very strong, straight ahead vocal. I don't mind a little bit of a gang vocal in certain genres, but there's a lot of gang vocaling on this album, which it's like every fucking chorus is doubled, like, well, I think actually Martin gets worse with it in like Headless Cross when he like shouts every name of the song and it's doubled kind of thing. Yeah. But you know, it's starting that stuff's creeping in, and I know it's a style. I know it's the 80s, and that would have been hot then too. People would almost expect that of an album that's going to be commercially kind of released.
I wonder how much.
But you hear moments of it where he's
at Iommi's direction. Like, was Iommi saying that he wanted these doubled and layered choruses? Was that the sound he was going for? Was that a Hughes idea?
The thing is, yeah, we'll get to it in the next track. Actually, is No Stranger, right? Yeah.
Yep.
But they actually re-recorded that one, like the album version, the video version of it. They did more vocal layering and more, like, it was very much like the difference was that you can tell that Hughes redid his takes. So I don't know, somebody was being in control. Either Hughes was wanting to grasp control of it and wanted it to have that smooth kind of assault that way, Or yeah, it was a production choice by Glixman or something, maybe to just make it more sound like what's around it on the radio.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I feel like so much of the 80s was people feeling almost compelled to mimic that style, and more so than any other decade that I can, my limited experiences has led me to see, is them wanting duplicating these terrible drum sounds and a lot of like the gang vocals and things like you said, rather than trying to mimic that for I think it was just for airplay or for popularity or for whatever, instead of
Yeah,
going
it's
with
not
what they already
serving the
had.
song, you know, like because you can build to that moment, and you can open up with like a choir like thing at a certain lift. I mean, Sabbath did that all the time. Even in the '70s, there'd be certain moments where it would open up. Songs like, you know, like Gypsy and Tech X and stuff like that. Like if it opens up at that point, and it makes it, but it just feels like that chord. It just feels like it's constant. You know, it's like, okay, drop that other vocal and like let Hughesy kind of do his thing, because he's more than capable of having character in his voice. He doesn't need to be masking, you know. But again, it's a choice, and it's my own personal vibes with it.
So what? How would you rank In for the Kill?
I probably start. I'll start with a 2. Just I'm keeping it down low. I'm not into that more galloping style anyway. Like I like the sludgy doomy stuff. So like that was the first like X against it, that it's not. It doesn't have any vibrato in it. Doesn't have any kind of that vibe. It's more of a straight ahead kind of chugger. So it's just not what I'd be into. And I don't think it has the same kind of energy as even like a Neon Nights or Turn Up the Night. I don't know if that's just Dio, but even just the riff, I find it's the solo is fucking amazing though. That's why it gets a 2, is because the solo is awesome.
Yeah.
So, it's great to hear Iommi let loose like that. He's still got that vibe of like carrying stuff over from the Dio era, because he really developed a different style where he was more of a guitar hero-y kind of vibe. Even through Born Again, the shredding solos that we were, it was blowing out our ears by the end of it because of the mix on it. But here it's like it's done right, it's mixed right, and it's just like you're just like, whoa, okay, yeah. But yeah, I'll give it a 2. I don't want to break it too high.
Coming in low, one of our lowest first track ratings. John, how are you following that?
I'll give it a 3. I mean, I think it had some decent energy, but it was just kind of I mean, it was a good opening track, but I mean, if you really listen to it, it's not really, I guess, that remarkable. It's just kind of generic, and Hughes could definitely do a lot better. I really didn't think about the vocals kind of getting masked until you guys were talking about it, but you're kind of right. You know, I mean, he can do so much stuff, but I mean, maybe at this time he wasn't capable. You know, maybe he needed that assistance. You know, or maybe it was a creative decision that they wanted it to sound a certain way, because when his vocals are doubled, like in some parts in the verse, it kind of sounded like when Gillan's vocals were doubled on Born Again. Maybe they're kind of going for that kind of like kind of dissonant type of thing. And I don't know, it just wasn't as different or remarkable. I mean, I've heard all of them do better, but it gets a 3 because of Iommi solo. It was well produced. It was like classic Iommi. It's just like you could tell it's him. You know, he's got a stamp on it. But you know, the riff and everything else, like even the rest of the playing is just kind of generic.
Yeah, I'll echo that 3 with another 3. It's funny that Rye mentioned Neon Nights, because I was thinking Neon Nights or Trash. Like I can see echoes of those 2 songs in this one, and wanting to achieve that same style, but just coming up short. And I think a lot of it, and as we get into this era, as we get into the mid to late 80s on the Deep Purple podcast, I'm afraid I am not going to be very charitable with my donations, with my rankings.
Your offerings to the purple
My
lords.
offerings to the purple gods.
The collection plates are going to be bare.
Right. Because I've just never ever, even as a kid, I did not like the way that kind of music sounded. And I've warmed up a little bit to it and been able to see through it a little bit for the songwriting and for what the song is, but I still just the way that snare drum sounds at the it sounds like he's hitting a trash can lid at the beginning of the song, and it's just like it takes me out of the song immediately. But then when Iommi's guitar comes in, I'm brought back a little bit. Glenn's vocals during the verse, but the chorus loses me a little bit too. So I mean, it's a decent song, but it doesn't do a ton for me.
Yeah, even with the drums, they're pretty simple, but they're kind of kicked back a bit, and you can tell that they're trying to like create that pocket that's that Abbasi hits all the time, where there's a little bit of like space, but because they're so overproduced and so mechanical in their like, there's no room tone, there's no space. He plays it a little bit stiff too. It sounds like. Yeah, it just loses. There's no vibe, you know, or the vibe that I look for, I guess. There's a different vibe.
I think there was in the 80s, there was this just, it was almost like this idea of putting on this extra reverb rather than just capturing the natural reverb that was in the room. And I know when I learned how to mic drums, it was putting those faraway mics and getting the room sound. And sometimes you were in a crappy room and it didn't sound that good, but sometimes you're in a nice big room and you could alter the reverb without throwing a ton of reverb on everything. And you'd get a little bit of the reverb in those overhead mics from the snare, but you weren't putting extra reverb on the snare mic itself. And with this, I feel like it's just crank the reverb up on everything. And it's not just the reverb, it's not a good reverb. It's that kind of cold plate reverb that they put on everything in the, and maybe I've got that wrong, but whatever that reverb is.
Yeah.
And
even like everything. In the 80s, like I guess electric kits and stuff were like, they were like the very basic like beginning of them, so they sounded like shite, but they were accepted because they were on records. Like you could hear it on the radio. You know, some of the new wave and all that stuff, like the drum tones on those aren't necessarily as the same as the 70s Ludwigs.
It works okay.
Yeah, it works great for that kind of music. Yeah, for sure. But the production techniques are translating over. I mean, I can't remember who you said like who Glicksman worked with before, but like either way, just as the studio setups of those times would have like the specific reverb, so you'd hear that same reverb on everything. It doesn't matter. Like this is an LA made album, right? So
LA and Atlanta, I think.
Yeah, it would be. It's definitely one of the American ones. So like, but stuff started to feel like that because it's like, you know, even if the drummer is, it's not a slag on Eric at that point.
I mean he's just playing
because you can't really hear his humanness of it because they're doing something specifically to take that out of it. So,
right. Yeah, it's weird, but anyway. That brings us to our next track, which is No Stranger to Love.
Nice one to calm this down.
Speaking of 80s sounds.
Cue the whale calls. Oh, there you go.
Almost sounds like
it sounds like he's trying to do the beginning of Die Young.
It's definitely got that.
I was thinking of like late 80s Pink Floyd. This is kind of like, until the drums come in. The vocals are really low in the mix. Or just EQ'd in a way that they kind of...
Well, he's also singing very low.
Yeah, like I mentioned...
There he goes.
When you listen to the video version or the single version, they definitely went back and addressed that. So it's funny hearing it now because I didn't... You're right, it's more what I like, I think, because it's... You can hear it's just Hughes, right? You can hear the imperfections more. Here it comes.
Rye's got his cigarette lighter going in case anyone was...
That living on the streets punch in is so obvious that it's punched in.
I didn't catch
I never
that.
noticed it until I heard it right here. It's just like, it sounds like, oh, yeah. It's funny.
Yeah.
Was it like in the studio? Hey, Glenn, you forgot to say you were living on the streets. Oh, don't worry, I'll fix it. Punch me in.
Yeah, I never know.
It is just incredible that no matter what was going on in his life and no matter what stage of his addiction he was in, that he was able to deliver vocal performances like this without fail.
Well, the Banshee's in there always, yeah. It's it's just too many doubles, man.
And you can see where a Black Sabbath fan would hear this and say, this doesn't sound anything like the Black Sabbath that I'm expecting.
Yeah.
Like, there's never been a Black Sabbath song before this that sounded like
There's a lot after, though.
this.
Yeah.
It's called the
Ushering in a
90s.
new era.
Yeah, ushering in a new era, yeah. This is well, you know, like, because in Born Again, like the song Born Again, that was kind of the bigger ballady version on that, and it still
Yeah.
had that
Oh, yeah,
still had that
that's-
Sabbath tone to it.
That's a good parallel,
This is
yeah.
just. But Glenn has said that. I mean, the MO when they went in was like, we want to make a heavy melodic rock album. There's nothing about making a Sabbath record. This is one of those ones where I just stare at the fucking bar going across. And like,
How far are we?
When's it gonna be over?
Well, yeah, it's,
I might play into the stereotypical metalhead role today. But
Well, it's-
you know, I like melodic stuff. I like something like this if it's the right setting, but
Well, it doesn't really. I mean, it's still
it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it.
Was there even a solo?
Yeah.
Don't even
Yeah.
take a solo? Okay, I missed it.
Yes.
At the beginning, but yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I'd zone out. That's
I-
what it is, man. It's just a zone out. It's like, oh,
It's 4.5 minutes long, which isn't terribly long, but it's funny because sometimes we'll listen to a song that's 8 minutes long and we'll be, wow, that just didn't feel like 8 minutes because it was so much
Right.
going on. Like Post Toasty springs to mind. It's like a 9-minute song, all these different avenues and twists and turns it takes you down.
yeah.
I mean, it's comparing apples and oranges, obviously, but then you've got this as a 4.5 minute song, half the length of Post Toasty, but it doesn't go anywhere. It just, like you said, it's got a verse and a chorus that's so similar to the verse that it barely qualifies as being a separate part, and then back into the verse.
Yeah. Yeah, and everything melds in because, like I said, like even the solo, it's like it just melds in there. It doesn't even have that November Rain fucking
Yeah.
kickoff or anything. I know, like it's a genre here. This is like very much what Whitesnake did a lot of shit like this in the 80s too, right? Like these
Sure.
kind of like
Yep.
ballads that just kind of move along. They're not there. It's not, I don't need flash, I know, but I just need some change up, just a little something.
Mhm.
And the production comes too forward because it is what it is.
So how would you rank?
I'll give it a
Those-
1. Has anybody given a 1 on this show? Or?
I think
Jesus. The hell?
I came here
Wow.
with a yeah.
I
Don't
knew-
worry,
I-
guys. It gets better. I just really don't like this song.
Ryan's got
No,
an
yeah, I
extra grind here.
I'm
I
not
did,
I'm not coming here to just throw off your entire ranking system. Although I had thought maybe like a little sabotage might be fitting. But
In preparation for this episode, I did not listen to the album because I haven't listened to it in a while, but I did listen to your episode on the
Oh.
album. So I knew
Okay.
this one was going to come in at rock bottom.
okay.
I wasn't expecting a 1, but that's great. I love that you gave it a 1.
I don't know. Did Paul give a 1? I feel like Paul
Paul
might have given a 1. somewhere.
I gotta do it once. And it's just because I'm obsessed with Sabbath, obviously, and I rank the whole, I go through the whole catalog and just kind of move stuff around. It's always right down at the bottom there with like, Am I Going Insane Radio and stuff like that. Like just these songs that don't connect with anything that I like about Sabbath, I guess. I mean, it's personal taste. I mean, I know people will probably be pissed and be like, I lost my virginity to that song or whatever, but that's not what this song means to me, you know?
Yeah, if you had that memory, I could see how that would bring up
totally.
the score a little bit.
I lost my virginity to the 7 Star album.
To Danger Zone.
Oh, you got to be a hardcore fan.
Yeah, both people involved have to be pretty hardcore fan for somebody to not just get up and be like, this isn't working out.
The first time I did it was to the Sphinx. Like, wow.
For the kill. So that lends the question: did they put on the single for No Stranger to Love, or were they just like started off like drop the needle on In for the Kill?
Yeah, it was part of a mix. They had Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone on right before it, and then right into.
Well, if you're losing your virginity too, are you making it the full 4 minutes and 29 seconds?
Hey, that's true.
That seems unlikely.
Maybe, what's the single edit? Is the single edit 3 something?
Yeah, maybe you could survive that one.
Yeah. Over the pants, done. In for the Kill. Oh, Jesus.
Okay,
John, No Stranger to Love.
All right, so this is going to take an odd turn. So I give this one a 4.
Virginity to the song.
I give this one a 4.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, you are in.
Well, wow. I haven't had really a chance to jump in after the whole the shock of the one. How?
But does this song move you to like I'm sorry then? I feel bad.
This is.
Are you having some life-changing moments?
This is good. This is like on the me and Nate, who do we think we are spectrum, I think.
Yeah, right.
Which we haven't had in a while. No hate for the one. I just like something about this. This is one of the songs that I go to for this album. There's something about it that I just really always liked. I mean, I don't think that you guys are wrong. In terms of it, I mean, it doesn't really go anywhere. It's not the best song, but I like it for what it is. Like when I listen to this album, not really listening to it hoping that it's old Black Sabbath or comparing it to Sabbath, but there are some things in there I just really when the first verse kicks in and you have that guitar rings out and you have these keyboards, it sounds really full, and it just really, that whole thing is just really simple, and it kind of, I don't know, it just it does it for me, and I think Hughes is a little more stripped down and doing what he does best, minus the chorus, which now I can't unhear that little punch in, so I don't enjoy it as much, but I don't know, I just think it's this really kind of melodic, like where Sabbath was headed, as you guys were saying, later on in the 80s type of ballad, and I don't know, I just really enjoy it. It's just one that really connected with me, and I think just on the strength of those things.
Wow, I love this range here. We normally don't have quite a range like this.
Well, it's fitting, right? Because Hughes has got that fucking range, man.
Exactly.
You
can go from 1 to 4 like it's nobody's business.
Exactly.
I do have to ask John, did you lose your virginity to No Stranger for Love?
No.
No Stranger to Love?
I did not.
Okay, just need to have that. If you had, it would be a 5. That's the only thing holding it back.
Did either of you guys lose your virginity to any song? I think mine was complete silence and a little bit of sobbing.
That is a good call. Yeah, some people are really into that. Oh, I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, no.
Late night with Deep Purple podcast.
Deep Purple.
Love line. We're gonna call in. We're opening up lines out there. I know there's a 7 star out there that's just waiting to get in for the kill.
I will not open it as far as saying tell us what song you lost your virginity to. But if you
Okay.
did lose your virginity to No Stranger for Love, let us know. If you want to be, discreet.
Oh, I thought we were gonna do it. I thought we were gonna say which
No,
song
no.
from this album would you most want to lose your virginity?
Well, I guess
can
we'll
be
do that when
fun.
we're done the album. We can figure
Okay.
out which
All right,
song.
we'll do that. We'll
That'll
do
be
that.
bonus time.
Because it's funny.
All
Because do you go to like with a slow romantic song like that or something more like more upbeat? But anyway, I'm gonna in for the kill.
the drum beat at the beginning.
Get that.
All right, that's it. I'm done.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with a 3, which is kind of my sort of neutral rating, which is like I don't mind the song. I don't.
The
go crazy.
peacekeeper who's coming in here.
Nate's
yeah,
like between the two of us, like
Yeah, hold him back.
Yeah, I don't need to go into huge details. I think we already talked about it, but yeah, it's good. I think it could have gone somewhere else, but it's, to me, I think it exemplifies one of my main problems with this album is that it's got an overall kind of sterile sound to it. I'd love to see a little bit more character in it. Given who's on this album, it's all great people involved, but it just sounds kind of cold to me overall. So, all right, speaking of cold, it's really cold when you get turned to stone. Right? So I've heard. Next track up, track 3, Turn to Stone.
oh, Fireball.
Yeah. Or Hot for Teacher.
Or almost like a Curse Lake kind of intro.
Yeah.
Well, you've already got Eric Singer leading off a couple of songs here on an Naomi solo album.
Yeah, right. He's stealing the show.
There's some Naomi swagger on that riff. See, like, it's got the speed, but then it has those bends.
Yeah, this one's picking up a little bit.
And then there's the chug, but that's a nice placement of the chug, Like, I like it when it's used.
Listen to that ride cymbal. The ride cymbal sounds great. Everything else on the kit sounds terrible to me. Especially just hitting that open hi-hat, it just sounds like somebody made like just a curtain out of spoons and is just like shuffling it back and forth.
Oh, here you go with your silverware again, just like Born Again episode.
It has that drawer full of silverware sound to it.
It's back.
But this to me sounds more like loose spoons hanging like
a wind
Yeah,
chime?
I'm not really focused on it. I'm focused on like the riff. It's just kind of really poppy, almost sounding kind of a Iromi riff.
When it
That
goes to the
riff is
ride cymbal, it sounds so great though.
Yeah.
I don't really like this part. I don't like what Hughes is doing here.
Yeah, there's a good. All I hear is Fernando.
Yeah.
He's in there. What's going on back there, though?
Was that guitar?
I think that was.
He was doing a little wah.
Yeah.
Doing a little wah
I
wah.
almost at first thought it was like a little Moog or something.
Yeah, it sounds kind of keys almost, yeah. Maybe that was the flute from Born Again.
You finally found it.
Ooh, he left a little clam in there. I like that. Always love that.
It's got a good driving beat.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that drum beat's dope.
Whoa.
You know, I was slagging on Hughes for doing overdubs. I think Tony should have showed off the overdubs in this one.
Eric Singer, a double bass player, right? Sounds like it from this.
Sounds like. I'm catching some David Lee Roth. Little girl from Tokyo. Like he's doing the
Yeah.
He's doing some Sunset Strip shit in there, Hughesy. But he does hit like I said there, he hits the burns. Just so much range. He is like, yeah. As much as I slag a little bit of his I think he pushes a little bit too far sometimes on here, but yeah, he has that range, so why not, right?
Yeah, and he can still freaking do it 40 years later. I mean,
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Everyone
I wish he
else
picked up the bass for this one though. That would have been nice because
that would have been cool.
Spitz isn't really bringing much. It's okay, but it actually I can hear it more in this than on the record.
Yeah, I don't.
But
I
it
don't
is
think
very.
I haven't keyed into anything that Spitz is doing yet.
No,
it just hasn't. It's probably just the way it's mixed too. I'm sure he's doing stuff, but I'm not. It's not jumping out.
Yeah.
All right, Turn to Stone, Rye. What say you about Turn to Stone?
I'll go up to 4 on this one. I do love that one. That's the killer riff. Of the fast ones, there's like 3 fast kind of gallopy, more traditional metal kind of ones, or priesty kind of metal. Of those ones, like this one's definitely got the most like groove. There's some wacky stuff going on. I didn't like some of the overdubs that Tony was doing there at the end. I found they didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
It sounded like he was building, like he was gonna break into something, but then it just sounded like after the fact he just sat there with a completely different tone and just bent the string or something. Yeah. I'll give it a 4. There we go. So John's gonna give it a 1.
Just to balance things out.
Balance things out. You'll go with a 3.
I'd be very surprised by a 1 from John on this one, but
no.
What do you think?
No,
John?
I would say 3.5.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah. So very, very close to Rye's rating. I definitely like this one. I think it's like I said before, a driving beat, a little good riff, a little bit of a poppy feel to it, which is I think is a good thing. Hughes is really bringing it with the vocals. The only thing I don't like was like you were saying the kind of end solo or whatever the hell was going on there, or the noises that he was making, but also that I was like hoping for a little bit more, like I don't know, he'd like go into some kind of like squealing solo or something like that, but also like Hughes's vocals during like the bridge and the chorus just kind of like fell flat for me. I thought that I mean I think the song is great, but it's like I feel like maybe it wasn't the best performance or execution. It was kind of like it was too downbeat. I think he could have brought more energy to it and not done it the way that it was done. Just thought it was a little low energy for the whole song, but the song as a whole I thought was pretty good.
I will also give it a 3.5.
8.
I think it's pretty good. Upbeat songs, definitely picking up a little bit. I probably loses just. I have a hard time, and as we get into the 80s, I think I need to figure out what we're going to do on the show. Like, how much do I subtract for production? Like
it's tricky,
looking past it for the song,
it's like almost easier to look past it on like a Born Again because it's so abrasively like messed up, whereas here like that they're trying to do that, so it kind of factors into the songwriting even. That's what I'm finding, like a lot of the right there, that thing where he did those little things and he should have went into a face melter solo, but he didn't because it probably didn't call for it because they were going for this certain vibe. It feels these, especially the front end of this album, feels very made in the studio, sterile. But it does shift. So like I'm not writing off the album, and I like Continue, Nate. I stepped on you there. Sorry.
No, I don't know where I was going, so that's fine. But that brings us to our next track, a little bit of a shorter one. And that is Sphinx, the Guardian.
The Sphinxter.
The Sphinxter.
The Sphinxinator.
Sphinxomaniac.
Sphinx says what?
Pretty for a 1-minute song, a pretty long lead in here.
Yeah, this is definitely my bone song. a long lead in.
And one of those classic examples of like, when do they make the decision between what's a separate track versus an intro to another track?
Yeah.
Why isn't this just the beginning of Seventh Star?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is like the dark into zero. It's like, it should have been that, you know? You'll probably hear the first note.
Oh,
no.
Almost.
Sometimes it's funny when it is the one track and you do hear like the first note of like the thing. It's like they didn't even bother to like
yes
cut it in properly.
Close enough. Ship those CDs. Get them out of here.
That's why. But Iomi was on the back there checking to make sure the Sphinx is in there on the track list, right? We already covered that. It's there.
Should we rank this now, or should we listen to Seventh Star and then rank both of them?
I think we should just go.
I think like we did on. Like we did on Born Again.
Yeah, that makes the most sense. All right, so we'll go right into Seventh Star here, the end of the first side.
Because that's not rankable.
No. And it does flow into this stomp really well.
Yeah, perfect. You can still hear that.
Because you can still hear the bed. Yep. This is the one that a lot of people like point to for like the stubborn sad heads when we say like, oh, it doesn't sound like Sabbath, and they go, what about the title track? Because it does have like a doomy kind of tone, but still, it's very AOR commercial, powery.
Yeah. Well, plus, I mean, the main riff, he's got this tone is like this kind of buzzsaw type of tone. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's not bad. I mean, I kind of like it, but it's not really thick.
Mm.
And the drums have this really weird,
really bad on this, don't they? Like, this is where they sound the most artificial. That doesn't sound like it.
This is full silverware, right, Nate?
Yeah, this is the full silverware drawer right here. A la Born Again. And it's a shame that it's like the hi-hat that's ruining everything. Like, usually it's like the snare sounds fine, but
because you rely on that hi-hat to be consistent because it's a timekeeper. So if you like, even if you're not aware of it, it is something that's keeping abrasive. I do like that keyboard with the choir. That's badass.
It sounds
it is a good chorus.
It sounds like it could be a Dio era Rainbow song at this point. Mm-hmm. Just the lyric integrity and that Seventh Star part, the chorus, I guess, if you want to call it.
And here you go, finally some riff change under the solo. That's key to me.
Yes.
And that sounds awesome. Just gives it a completely different vibe.
Yeah, this is
like with some of the other songs, he's just been kind of blasting over top of the same riff that's been. This is
how does that ride cymbal sound so good, and the hi hat sounds so bad that I can't comprehend.
It's kind of got a little snake charmer sound to it, doesn't it?
Yep.
Ritchie Blackmore is going to come in soon.
Do something in Lydian.
Oh.
Those Chinas, I guess that's a China, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Sounds like it.
Really getting into those like Arabian Nights.
Let's get that whole.
I don't know. I feel like that whole last part was really kind of meandering, though.
Yeah. Well, once the solo came out of it, it was great when it switched under the solo at the beginning. But you're right. Coming out of it, there was kind of like an instrument pad that. They should have busted back into it after the solo. That would have been powerful.
Yeah, kind of had that like, I'm trying to think of like, maybe it had like a Dirty Women feel to it. Am I thinking of the right song?
A little windy.
Maybe.
If I had a
Dirty Woman's got a lot of.
5. love
Yeah.
that song.
Yeah, it's just not the riff Leviathan that it should be. When they went into that part, you brought up Dirty Woman, but that's the thing with that. It changes continuously.
Is he going for like a cashmere sort of thing here?
Oh, everyone is always going
Everyone's
for
always
cashmere.
trying to do cashmere.
That's, yeah. I don't know if you know that about hard rock, but
yeah, every hard rock song is always trying to be cashmere. At least one cashmere ripper.
What's that
rip
White
off per
Snake?
album.
What's that White Snake song that's on? I think it's on the Steve Vai one. There's one that's just straight up cashmere.
Oh, really?
I'll dig it out.
Oh, I know. Was it Judgment Day, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. That sounds familiar.
I know which one you're talking about. It might be that.
Yeah.
Actually, I like that one. I like
do
that
too,
album
actually.
in the '87 album.
So do I. Yeah. Yeah, this is a little bloated, isn't it? What's the time on it?
5:20.
5:20.
Yeah.
And add another minute 11 for the intro too.
The sphincter.
Gotta guard that sphincter. I really like the intro though, and of course it ends with the howling.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
All right, well that is a 7th star, and the Sphinx, of course. All right, so how are we gonna rank those two songs?
Hmm.
You can do it any way you want. You can give both the same ranking. You can give them individual rankings.
Well, I guess we could go by just how well the intro fits with the rest of the song. Give it a. I don't want. I'd say like, I'd just give it a 3 or 2.5, right?
2.5 for the intro.
Yeah, just so it doesn't affect any ratings. It just kind of sits there.
Okay.
That's what it does.
True.
And 7 star, I'd give like a 3.5. I actually enjoyed the riff in Turn to Stone a little more. I know people, like I said, people bring this up as like, whoa, 7 stars, just doomy as fuck. Yeah, but it is a little like, it's not like, it's doomy, but it's like meanderingly doomy. It doesn't catch you with a riff off. Like the whole thing with like the doom that Sabbath brings, even you look at Iron Man, like, yeah, it's doing that big riff, and then like they go into the big wind out at the end. Under the Sun, same, they do the reverse of that where it's like all riffy and then like they wind it down. Like there's always like moments of like dynamics. The dynamics in this song kind of get lost, except for the beginning of the solo is kind of cool. I like that change up there with the China hits. The drum track is noticeable on this one, I guess. And it's funny because this is one of the songs where the drums, there's been more space in the drums, so you notice it even more. Just what kind of reverb they're putting on it, Like you were saying with the spoons and knives in there, and the silverware.
Salad forks,
that one
olive forks,
that one
cheese
grapefruit
knives.
spoon, and
Well, he's got
baller.
yeah, it's funny. You're right. There's like the killer ride and the killer China. So maybe it's just like he's hitting that part right, and the rest of it they're just fucking with the sound too much, and they were ignoring that.
Either that, or it just has like a hi-hat that's made out of aluminum foil or something. Or I don't know what it is. Or like I said, it's like you take you unscrew the hi-hat, you take the top off, you fill the hi-hat with spoons, you put the top back on, screw it in. And that's what I'm getting. It just sounds like. But all right, John, how do you rank Sphinx the Guardian and 7 star?
So I'll give Sphinx the Guardian 2.5 as well. I think that's fair to give it that, since it was just kind of this short, nondescript intro. And 7 star, I would say a 3. It's definitely kind of a little too plodding, meandering at points. It's a cool riff. The drums definitely, I don't know, I feel like almost ruin it, because it's just weird that there's such like prominent effects on the drums to the point where it's like they seem to be like taking over the album, you know, like it's not even Eric Singer's solo album, and it's like, you know, it's got this, you know what I mean? It's just, it's got all this crazy, like, you know, reverb and delay and, you know, spoons and forks and shit, you know, so it's like
yeah, and it's one of the more open
but,
tracks too, where there's space, so you hear it a
yeah.
lot. Like you can hear all the jangles, all the wetness.
But I mean, I do, like, despite that, I do like the melody in it. Like I do like the chorus, you know, there is something about it that's, you know, kind of catchy. One of the things is while I was, this is one of these songs, when I listen to it, I think about how it would sound if like a band was performing it live, like stripped down. And it's like, it actually, I feel like it would be a good song, you know, if it were like, if it had a little more energy, if it had like kind of that live vibe behind it. So, but I mean, it is what it is here. So 3.
I think a lot of the stuff would sound on this album would sound great live because it wouldn't have this production on it. The drums,
Yeah.
and mostly I would say the drums. I don't think much of the other stuff bothers me as much, and that's true of all this 80s stuff. It's always the drums that drive me crazy, and I think if you heard them playing it live in a club or wherever, the Worcester Centrum, their last show, you would there'd be other problems, but the drums I think would sound more natural. And that's kind of the problem that I have. I however feel a little bit better about this song. I would give the Sphinx, the Guardian, a 3, and 7th Star a 4, because I do like the general feeling of the song, and it to me it strikes me as one of those rainbow tracks. There's always every rainbow album has a track like this where they're going for this, they're going for that Arabian style scale, they're talking about pyramids and wizards and every other thing. And sometimes this reminds me of one of the rainbow tracks like that, where they're just a little off the mark. It's not quite a Stargazer, it's not quite a Gates of Babylon, but it's trying for that style and it just falls a little short. And that's what this track reminds me of. I like that style, and that's why I give it a 4, and I think they do a pretty good job on this, but it's not quite all the way there.
There's not enough mummy dust in it.
Not enough scarabs and
Not enough scarabs.
Cartouches. Okay, so that brings us to the second side of 7th Star. As we dive into that, we're going to take a trip to the danger zone.
Oh, different danger zone. This is like straight up The Crew. She's got the looks.
yeah, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say, it sounds kind of like pop-ish 80s again. But yeah, it does. It looks like Kill.
Hughes is a little bit of a better vocalist than Vince Neil.
Just a little bit.
Just a smidge.
Just even this, like, if you could consider this like not Hughes's best work, even if you did consider it that way, still be better than Vince Neil at his best.
This is true.
It doesn't give me any Iomi there, that riff.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah, if I heard this in a vacuum,
I think this is going to be similar. Yeah, this is going to be similar to In for the Kill for me, where it's like the solo might be good. We'll see.
Yeah, it's kind of, everything's kind of neutered right now, almost.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a throwaway riff, even for the riff lord. There's that ride.
Still got a great ride sound. I don't know what Glicksman was doing with that ride, but
maybe that's all he was concentrating on.
screw the hi-hat.
Yeah.
You only hear that 75% of the time, so why bother? It's almost hard to tell if it's an open hi-hat or a closed hi-hat. Like, I can't even tell.
Yeah, the only thing that the snare comes out, yeah, you lose a lot of the. Here we go. It's getting very melodic there. This is rad.
Yeah, that's like an old school Sabbath little breakdown.
That's a badass riff. It almost sounds like a Aussie something kind of breakdown.
It is a shame because I feel like Singer's playing on this album is really good, but just
There's glimmers of it. He's got some unique fills.
yeah, he's throwing in some great fills. All you can hear is that hi-hat. Maybe it's just me, but that frequency just stands out to me so much. It's distracting.
It's because there's a lot of, like we said, saturation on some of the other stuff, like the vocals and the kick and stuff.
Yeah.
But
It's like it's competing with Glenn's voice for the spotlight, and that should never be the case. Nobody wants to hear a hi-hat over a vocalist. Not even Gene Krupa would want to hear that.
it's Gene Krupa pull.
And this song just kind of meanders off into the distance.
Yeah, that's a bad fade. You
It's
never
a very
fade.
unexpected fade. Fade during the verse, like that's
Yeah.
weird.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Like really weird. Like I didn't even see that one coming. All of a sudden, I'm just like, wait, are we fading this out now? I was like, is there something wrong with my volume? Really bizarre. All right, Rye, what say you about Danger Zone?
Yeah, I don't remember what I gave in for the kill.
A 2.
Oh, okay, I'll give that a 2 too, because it sits in that same zone where it's like it's not offensive. Hughes sounds pretty good on there. He's got some. Again, there's less of that layering and more of his straight ahead vocal there. You can hear him moving, bringing that soul in, that blue-eyed soul he's got. So, yeah, a 2. Again, it's not really my. I do those 3 together. I'd say like Turn to Stone, In for the Kill, Danger Zone. Those are like the more. They got the metal in there, and of those ones, like Turn to Stone on this listen through anyway, it just blows them all out of the water. So,
yep.
Not that there can only be one song like that on an album, but like I'm just comparing it against the stuff that's around it.
Right.
This one just doesn't grab me.
They're shooting for a certain thing, and sometimes they're falling short. So.
Yeah, and like I said, there's too much of that, like a reference to the Crew riff there. I can't even think of when that would be. If that would be before or after. It might be one of those
after.
Zero the Hero. It's after Crew, right?
Yeah.
Because that was
Crew is 83, so
83.
Yeah, I don't think Iommi's.
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't even accuse Iommi of
Stealing
ripping off
riffs.
Crew. I mean, it's possible.
But I mean,
Well, it's not even a
similar,
riff that you would accuse somebody of ripping off. It's pretty stock,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But I mean,
Sunset Strip.
They did it better. I mean, that's one.
Crew did it better. Yeah,
where they did it better. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, made it more iconic anyway. Yeah.
There's not many situations where I'm gonna say the Crew did it better than Black Sabbath, but this is one of them.
Well, yeah.
John, what do you think? Danger Zone.
I gotta give it a 2.5. It just really there wasn't really not much remarkable about it, and then I don't know, I just feel like a lot of this one was just very like kind of directionless. And then the way that the verse, it just kind of faded out on like a verse was kind of unusual. And I don't know, the riff didn't have any balls, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
even in that really cool section, that cool breakdown where we heard some
The
kind of like
solo,
old
yeah.
school Sabbath, there was just a lot of it's a production, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
like
it didn't have that
know?
bass with it either. You know, like
Yeah.
that change should have had like a little bit of flow to it. Like, you know, if Geezer was there, he'd go off a bit and just fill out that space.
Yeah, I feel like
Everything just feels mechanical around Iomi at that.
I keep trying to listen for the bass, and every time I forget, and we get to the end of a song, and I'm like, I didn't. Usually there'll be this little fill or something that, I'll take note of it. I
Yeah.
haven't noticed a single bass thing yet.
Yeah, I'm not getting anything.
No.
Really.
And that's a big thing for me because I do lock onto the rhythm section a lot. When the drums are that abrasive and you can't hear any bass, I'm just like, it's hard because all I can do, I'm basically rating Iomi and Hughes because we have said that Singer does have some moments for sure, and maybe if the production was a little less heavy, those would stand out better. But they're not bringing it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a fair comparison, but I think the last album that we rated on the show was Blizzard of Oz, which obviously got very high rate, much to the dismay of many of our listeners.
Really?
Got very high rankings. Not that they. Not
I
that they
deal with those
disliked it.
same listeners.
I think they're just like, what?
They don't tune into my show.
But when you hear like what that rhythm section, what Kerslake and Daisley are bringing in, the little those high runs that Bob Daisley's throwing in there, there's so much stuff, the character that gets thrown in there.
Well, we can even go as simply as to look at Eternal Idol compared to this. There's a lot of it's in that same zone. It's kind of the same. Iomi was kind of in the same batch of riffs, but the stuff that Daisley brings, the composition wise, and his riffs, his runs are just next level.
Yeah,
they add that they move in their own space. They don't just here. It just seems like it almost feels like they didn't hear Iomi's riff. Like they laid down the tracks and then Iomi put the riffs off. Like, you know, like it doesn't sound like a band playing off each other. It sounds very gridded.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call. And Blizzard of Oz sounds so much like a band firing on all cylinders with everybody
playing off each other
and playing off each other. And this is, it's almost like they laid out a chart in front of each player. They recorded a dry drum beat, and a bass player not listening to anything, just playing along to a click track or something. And when they meshed it all together, it comes together. It's just it doesn't.
There's no soul, you know.
And I know that like Jeff Nichols would, when they would workshop these songs together, him and Iomi, Nichols would lay down bass tracks and stuff like that. Like before this, even going into Heaven and Hell, you know, when Geezer's not present, of course. But you know, I almost think that I almost feel like they heard kind of demo tracks and they kind of jammed along to those, and then Iomi came in afterwards and laid in his part. It doesn't have the flavor I want from like a off the floor kind of band thing.
I will also give this one a 2.5. I like what they're attempting to do, but yeah, it doesn't take off. So I think we probably said more about Danger Zone than most people have in a lifetime.
Well, we can go on to the Kenny Loggins one.
Yeah, I mean that one would get much higher marks. Kenny Loggins just brings it.
That's right.
You know, I got to take a break here. One time I was interviewing someone for a job, and she said to me, has anyone ever told you look like Kenny Loggins? I was like, just in the middle of the interview. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wasn't even at the point where I was like, do you have any questions you want to ask me? Just threw that out there. I was like, oh, that's great. Kind of admired.
And when you did ask that, are you Kenny Loggins? Coming back to my question that I asked you midway through.
People have told me that. It's because I am Kenny Loggins.
There you go.
No, you don't. They're all wrong.
I mean, similar.
No, wrong.
It's a white guy with a beard. I mean,
yeah, that's the only similarities you have.
I don't know. I mean, give her some credit, John.
No.
John, I think we should hire her. All right. Next track up. Heart Like a Wheel. The traditional slow fade in after a weird fade out.
Yeah. Just walking into the blues club.
Yeah, exactly.
Sabbath style.
With your friend John. Just mean mugging everybody.
I think Iommi would look right at home in a blues club in that fringe jacket.
Oh, hell yeah.
Hey, we're hearing that bass.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the
The
first
animal
time,
is
really.
showing up. The beast.
It's like the Injustice for All of the Black Sabbath catalog.
Yeah. This is starting to hit the Iommi Hughes vibe that I dig. There's a little bit of bluesy riffage.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually one of the few ones that survived the live sets outside of the minimal Hughes involvement on the tour. I think
really?
I've heard Martin doing this maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it's kind of, I can see it because it's kind of just a blues standard 12 bar kind of blues thing behind it. So this is probably how, if Iommi was to show up at a blues club and sit in with the band, he'd probably be cranking these kind of riffs,
I mean,
which would be
Glenn,
fucking badass.
Glenn is definitely up in his game with the boy. He's doing some good vocals on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Oh.
Hey, it sounds like it's a band, at least.
Yeah.
It does sound live off the floor. But that being said, I mean, it's 12-bar blues, so that's what it's all about, is that jam vibe. They know what they're going to be doing next. These guys have played this kind of style all the time. But it's a great Iommi showcase, right?
Yeah.
He gets to show off that true swampy blues.
Well, I mean, this style really comes to him naturally because, I mean, it's like really a bluesy player, like at the heart of it, you know? I mean, it's Sabbath started out as was kind of a blues jazz type of band anyway, right?
Yeah. I think when we talk about the traditional blues filler song on an album, it's it can go one of two ways. It can be really trite.
It's almost a breath of fresh air on this album, though.
Yeah.
Just because production-wise, it does counter and it gives you a different vibe.
It does, but at the same point, it's almost 7 minutes long. That's like, ugh, that's a lot for just a traditional 12-bar blues kind of thing.
It's true.
It's not, they're not breaking a lot of new ground with this. And sometimes you can do the blues filler track that's disguised in such a way that you don't even pick up on the fact that it's a blues song, and that's not the case with this one. It's obvious.
No, it's
that
in
this
your
is
face,
what
yeah.
they're going for. It's like, we need one more song. We need to really stretch that album out. Let's make it 7 minutes long. Throw in some guitar solos. The middle
And
is
a really slow fade in.
Really slow fade in, exactly. All the hallmarks.
Just
of
fading.
need to-
They were
need to
fading
fill
in
some
for like 2
space.
minutes there.
But like you said, it is well played, and it's probably the best band feel they've had on any of these songs.
That's what I'm liking about it. It's refreshing compared to some of the stuff we've heard. And there's been some stuff that I like that we've heard, but the overall vibe so far has been very sterile. This has a little bit of life to it, a little bit of humanity, a little bit of breathing.
And you can it's still got that.
And Spitz is even moving the bass line a little bit there. I think he moved it once.
You can hear the bass for the first time, the drums sound.
So he's
pretty
running
much
up the scale.
same, but it doesn't bother. The drums don't bother me the same on this track.
I would just love to hear this same one. I could do 7 minutes of this if Geezer was in there on bass.
Oh man,
because this would be
killer.
Sweet. Because they tag off, right? Because obviously he's not. Yeah, even Hughes, yeah. But Spitz isn't gonna tag off with Iommi the way that Geezer does, so. A little bit of kick skip. Yeah, this is long though. You're right.
Are they gonna fade it out too? Let's see. It was originally like a 20-minute track. Fade in and fade out.
Yeah. Really lazy concept side of the album.
Yep, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of fades. A lot of fades on this album.
Who could tell how long the song, the unedited version? It's got to be over 10 minutes easy.
Yeah, the single version.
This was the single version.
Yeah.
Radio edit.
We whittled it down to 6 minutes and 37 seconds for the single. All right, Heart Like a Wheel, Rye, what do you say?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 3.5 because it's doing what, like I said, it's a bit of a breath of fresh air to just hear the bass and have a groove behind them. And it's also doing what I'm liking here, which is Iommi showcasing. So within the setting of the album. And Hughesy brings it too. Yeah, like I said, it could be shorter. It could just be a little bit of a quicker interlude. I do agree with that. But it does set up kind of the vibes here at the end. And I really, outside of Danger Zone, which I do not like, but the way from this point forward, it stays, this is when the album gets me. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's just the mood that sets, that song, actually, when you listen to it as a full play, it does kind of reset things a little bit just because you're just like, okay, I'm in a blues zone. What's going on here? You kind of forget some of the stuff that's come before. Yeah. So 3.5.
All right, Johnny.
I'll give it 3.5 as well. I think that we all know my feelings on the lazy blues song, but
it's no place in the line, at least.
No, it's definitely, it's long, but I mean, it's good. It definitely has that live feel that we were talking about. Like, it sounds like everybody was playing as a band. We can hear the bass, like breath of fresh air, that whole thing. I think it's valid. Hughes sounded pretty good. I don't really care for Iommi soloing. Like, I mean, I like his solos, but it's just like, I don't know. I feel for like a blues song, he's not really, the whole fluttering guitar solo thing that he does just doesn't really sit well over a basic blues riff like this, in my opinion, because like, that type of thing, you need to let it breathe a little bit more. And he was just like, just really, like Bumblebee playing, he's like,
yeah, I agree on certain parts of that, but he does hook in every once in a while with his vibrato, and like, those are the moments that really, like, that does elevate it. But you're right. Yeah. That flutter kind of thing. It's very,
I mean, it works in some songs, but, so here, I mean, at least it takes the album in a different direction. Like we were saying, and it's, it's not completely bad. And the blues type of riff too, it has that kind of like, he throws in that little kind of like minor, sounding thing in there. So it's kind of like, sticks with the whole kind of like Sabbath type of thing, because, I like it resolved to like a da na 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 na, you know,
Yeah.
which
Yeah, oh,
is
yeah.
kind of sounded a little
Flat and fifth
evilish,
or
you
whatever,
know. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. I kind of like when musicians do something a little different like that.
Yeah.
But you know, average at, at best, you know.
I will also give it a 3.5. The first song we've had a 100% agreement on. Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't think I have anything to add other than what you guys said. It's just kind of a. It could easily lose points if it was done more poorly, but they do a really good job of it, and it's got probably the best energy so far on the album.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that leads us to our next track, which is Angry Heart.
That drum fill coming out of the previous song too works really well. And John Lord shows up here.
Yeah, it's a nice little organ.
This is the most Deep Purple Black Sabbath song ever.
Yeah.
Like Perfect Strangers era Deep Purple.
Yeah, this could be right on the Perfect Strangers for sure.
Sick riff too. Hughes's climbs are awesome too on those. When he stays up there, this is a great vocal track. Even when he gets melodic here, it's not overdone like some of the other ones. It's not overcooked. He sounds like one guy.
Yeah, it seems like his singing is. This is the song maybe so far that we've heard that his singing is best suited to.
Yeah.
Like a backwards piano hit or something.
Wow. Yeah.
And the hi-hat still sounds terrible, but it seems more in control. Like it's not fighting for space with Hughes' vocals like it is in other songs.
Yeah. Hughes is also, I just love how he's resetting it every time. He's going back low and then coming up and then climbing and then he stays. Like,
Yeah.
great dynamics. He really just nailed the melody on it. This is the voice of rock. I hate that moniker, but
I know you
Voice of rock.
but that's pretty killer. It's got that deepness to it too. Doesn't sound like he's forcing it like some of the earlier tracks. Yowza.
What was an abrupt end?
All right. Does it fade into the next track? I guess.
Yes, these two are actually kind of almost a tandem.
Yeah. So this one was so. From what I read in Popoff's books, Jeff Nichols wrote the lyrics for the song about the death of his mother, and then Glicksman wrote a set of lyrics about the death of his dog in place of which seems right off the bat kind of like, dude, he just wrote a song with the death of his mother.
Which one did they go with?
Reel it in, man. Like, even if you felt like if you wanted to write the song about the death of your dog, that's fine, but not after somebody wrote it about the death of his mother. So then Iommi decided to go with Nichols's lyrics instead. I mean, because any decent human being would decide that. It seems almost insulting to just be like, I know you wrote that touching song about the death of your mom, but I got a good idea. Let's scrap that and write about the death of my dog instead. Who does that?
That's hilarious.
Too much cocaine or whatever going around at the time. Just
Sorry, Mom. I gotta memorialize Patches right now.
It's just wrong. It's like, I know you love your mom, but I think my dog is more important than your mom. That's basically what that says, right? I mean, not cool. So anyway, I just put that note there because it had to be mentioned that happened.
It's weird.
Okay, angry.
It's freaking weird.
It is really.
And
weird.
Eric Singer was like, my cat died.
I had a gerbil and I was very close with it.
Let's work Fluffy into the lyrics.
Not even his own gerbil. His friend. My friend had a gerbil that died.
My friend.
All right, Rye, Angry Heart. How would you rank that one?
Angry Heart. Yeah, this one and the one after kind of do a little 1-2 punch for me that I really love. And so I give it a 4.
All right.
I'm going higher than that's probably as high as I go on this record, right? Yeah.
So far, yep.
Yeah. So that and Turn to Stone or Forest. Yeah, for sure. I think I really just love a good Hammond organ tone, just in rock, yeah.
In rock.
and roll.
It just, I know he's not doing as much as Lord would do, obviously, as far as like really playing a riff, but it's got that bed, and it harkens to like the Perfect Strangers kind of, like the song Perfect Strangers kind of vibe, like that big kind of almost church-like organ in your face.
Sure.
And I love Hughes on this one. The way he climbs and resets and climbs, great control. And that, yeah. Let's give it a 4.
All right, John.
I'm not as enthusiastic about this one. Unfortunately, I got to give it a 2.5.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't do anything for me.
Dude, it's about my fucking dog. I don't have such an angry heart.
Sorry, Patches.
Well, no, if this is about his mom, if it was about a dog,
right.
it would be a 1.5. Had to beef it up.
Yeah, no, I mean, lyrical content aside, I just, I know the song is just kind of there, I don't even think I was really listening to it, to be honest.
Totally tuned out.
I
will give it a 3.5. I mostly on the strength of Hughes's vocals and kind of what he's doing with the melody there, but yeah, overall a little maybe a little generic in the music department, but I think it's good, but doesn't blow me away. That takes us to the final track on the album, which is In Memory, which is this is written about Tony's father who passed away. Glicksman wisely did not bring up his cat or a pet hamster or anything.
Parakeet.
I had a parakeet that passed away.
I had a bird once.
So I think we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at Tony's father who just passed away. So obviously this is a very personal song for Tony. So here we go. In Memory.
And there's a great transition there too.
Yeah.
It's that big hit. I like those arpeggios that he keeps going there. I don't know if he actually played an acoustic on this one, but it's got that.
Yeah, sounds like it.
You know, like sometimes songs they sound like they click out of a clean part on a electric. This one actually sounds like it's another track.
Like hearing Naomi busting out the acoustic in the 80s.
Yeah.
Harkens back to what he used to do.
He'd have
It was
one
a
of those
great-
ones on the stand live and he'd go over to it.
There you
I always think that's the cheesiest thing.
go. I'm just gonna go out here and bust out a little Laguna Sunrise and then go back to my
Yeah.
other stuff.
Hey, gets the job done.
Actually, there's a funny thing. Neil Murray, who plays bass in the Headless Crosshair and stuff, he does a bass solo where he has a different bass on one of those stands. So he walks up with his bass, goes to another bass, and then plays that.
What's
my
so
goodness.
different about it that
It's
he
just
needs
like-
that bass?
Yeah, just work it out on the 5-string.
You got one on you already. Figure it
Yeah.
out.
This is a really kind of short piece too, because I mean it's only
Yeah.
what 2. Yeah.
Almost
That's
reminds
why
me
when you're
kinda-
listening to the track, when it comes in right after Angry Heart, it's kind of cool. It's like a tag on to it. It almost
Yeah,
feels
it's like a
another
nice
part of
little
it.
like fade out. It kind of reminds me of like a Diary of a Madman sort of the way he's arpeggiating.
Yeah, like a
his
coda
chords.
that just comes at the end. Yeah,
Of course, that song's a bit more intricate than this one,
just a little bit.
but
Oh, there's the
Ooh.
Muppets.
oh yeah, you almost got there.
He's getting space high.
He went for it.
Oh,
Space.
Jesus. That leads to the next album. Do we just roll right into
Yeah, we're gonna just do "Play Me Out" now in its
Play Me Out?
entirety. Just for you,
Space.
Rye. So, In Memory. Wow. So, you want to kick it off, Rye? What do you think of In Memory?
Yeah, I'd give it a 4 too, just because like those two together are kind of a 4 for me.
Mhm.
Maybe I should have given them both 3.5s because they've separated them. But no, it's really cool because when you listen to it on the record, especially if you're not looking at the track separations, you wouldn't really catch it because it does feel like a coda. It just feels like that big hit comes in and the acoustic bridges.
Yep.
Hughes gets a little goofy there at the end, I will admit, but overall, strong closer. I like that little bit of the end. Like now, when I think about it, especially with vinyl, so I'd put on side 2. It just maybe try to skip Danger Zone if I could. You know, drop the needle. Just get the magnifying.
Nudge
Yeah,
it over.
yeah.
All right, John.
I'll give it a 3.5.
Okay.
I think it's got a good vibe. I like what the acoustic feel in it. I like what Hughes is doing in it. When he says it's been haunting me, I just kind of like him riffing on that a little bit.
Mhm.
It's kind of emotional. Yeah, it's good.
Do you think it's length, even just that it's kind of short, kind of adds to its power? That's kind of what I find with it because
Yeah.
it leaves you too, right? That's when the album just ends. So it's
Yeah.
like it's a really, yeah, it's emotionally concise. It's not long-winded.
Right. I like.
Iommi's not really like making his guitar cry kind of thing. It's just kind of he's doing those arpeggios. It feels very still. It does feel
Yeah.
like a reflection in memory.
Mhm.
So in that way, I
Mhm.
think it's a cool little spot.
Mm-hmm.
I would give it a 3.5 as well. I think a lot in the same way that like Sphinx is an intro to Seventh Star. This is kind of like an outro to Angry Heart, and I like it. I like the fact that it's a little redundant. It kind of goes on. It doesn't go anyplace else really, but you've got some really passionate vocals by Hughes, and it's just a very powerful end to the album. I think it's pretty well done. It's probably one of the high points of the album for me, to be honest.
That's good. They know where to position them then, because it leaves you with the vibe that, yeah, you'd revisit it.
Yeah.
It would be a weird one. Like there's some albums that are almost like a loop. Like you can, once the one ends, then you can turn it over and keep going, like Diary of a Madman's, that kind of style.
Yep.
As soon as that ends, I'm just like, I want to hear the whole thing again.
Yeah.
This one, not so much, but it does leave you with like a nice moment of reflection. But I'm just like, I'm not going to go through some of that stuff at the beginning again. It still haunts me.
It might be early, but I'm going to call it. When we do Diary of a Madman, I think it's going to beat out Seventh Star.
Yeah, it's going to beat out Blizzard, hopefully too, right?
It could, which is crazy
It's
to say.
anybody's
But
guess because they're both really good.
yeah,
That's
I've always
juggernaut
preferred
album, yeah.
Diary to Blizzard, and given how high I rated
too.
Blizzard, it's going to be yikes.
If that knocks Blizzard out, we're gonna have a lot of people pissed because it's gonna just shove Coverdale down another notch.
is that the retort? It's just all the Cov heads.
No, I think it's the Deep Purple. I think
Deep Purple
fans are outraged enough that a David Coverdale solo album has the top slot, but now that an Ozzy album has the top slot,
Hey, we like what we like.
I think it goes now it goes Ozzy, Coverdale, and then Deep Purple as our top 3 albums of all time.
There you
go. But hey,
I don't think Seven Star is going to threaten anybody.
No.
No,
probably
Nope.
not.
And we're gonna find out how non-threatening it is
okay.
in one moment. In just a moment. All right, where are our ratings? I'm checking our ratings. There we go. Seventh Star. Okay, so not surprisingly, ranks kind of low in the rankings here. So we're a 6.39 rating for the hosts, just the hosts. A combined rating of 9.33, which we'll talk about that in a minute. So that is probably on the lower end. It's between First of the Big Bands by Ashton and Lord and Wild Thing by Fancy.
An album that got outraged just from being covered at all.
Which it's a little bit below that one.
Yes.
So let me see.
I think I made a Bobby Gentry joke when you did that one. I didn't even know what it was. Fancy.
Not many did.
I don't think I
actually it's our lowest guest rated combined rating with the guest host.
And for as low as John and I rated it, you rated it even lower, Rye.
Well, yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, it was when Ryan.
I feel like I gave it a fair shake for certain things that I do enjoy about it. So.
Although Nate and I didn't have much of a variance in it, it was like I liked it a little less too. But you were kind of you were unforgiving on a couple of songs, which
early on, yeah.
Yes, that's your prerogative.
Yeah.
So yeah, like seventh Star isn't gonna. Like you said, it's not going to win any awards.
You start throwing around ones and twos, it's hard to recover from that.
Yeah. I took the legs out of it before it even had a chance. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
but hey, they put No Stranger to Love in the 2 slot, so that's on them.
It's not overall not a remarkable album. I mean,
No.
Yeah.
And even when separate it from the Sabbath comparisons and stuff like that, I think on its own it doesn't really stand up even to the rest of Iommi and Hughes's like collaborations.
Yeah,
because they definitely they hook up. They're great together, but it was just a moment in time. I don't think we've covered all its pitfalls heading in, just the setup for it.
Yeah, and you've got
the fact that everybody has to give those stipulations before when somebody asks, "Oh, how is that album? I never checked out." Well, I have to tell you that it was meant to be this. Well, that is not the mark of a good album going in.
Yeah, if it was a great album, they'd just be like, "Oh, it's awesome."
Yeah. You don't see me saying that about Diary of a Madman. Oh, well, Rudy Sarzo was actually touring. I don't say that. I say fucking Diary of a Madman.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's just you've got the 3 main guys, I mean, I don't know what Nichols' situation was, but between Iommi, Glicksman, and Hughes, you had three guys who basically were out of it during the making of this, very much under the influence of various narcotics, and it kind of shows, the fact. But at the same time, you're like, the fact that they could pull this off and release an album of this quality when they were that messed up is pretty outstanding.
When you see how fast the tour falls apart too, right? Like it's like 4 dates in and
Yeah.
Hughes' nose explodes or something.
At the end of somebody's fist.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe it was just all of Charlie.
True.
There's been talks.
According to Hughes, he got into a fight with John Downing, and who broke Hughes's eye socket and sent a piece of bone into his sinuses and had blood.
Jesus.
And all
I've heard about that. That's gnarly. Yeah.
Pretty gnarly. So, Hughes has his take on it, and the Sabbath guys have their take on it. But for the most part, it sounds like that fight did happen, and who knows what was going on that caused that. And Hughes's story is he couldn't, from the very beginning of the tour, he couldn't sing. Like, he just wasn't out of it. How much of that was due to drugs? How much of that was due to this? Who knows? But yeah, 5 shows in, he's out. They apparently had Ray Gillan in as a understudy because they knew he was
right from the get-go. Yeah.
And
I think Spitz was buddies with him or something like that, or knew him from like the Jersey scene, and like was like, hey, well, I got a guy that we can. I think he was practicing in the hotel while like Hughes was still like, in the other room or whatever. Yeah. It's one of those situations.
And apparently Hughes was, like many people, was under the impression this was an Iommi solo thing and was excited about it. And then all of a sudden dropped on him, oh, by the way, now it's Black Sabbath. You're going to sing all these Black Sabbath songs. And he wasn't into singing. I mean, just like when he was in Deep Purple, he wasn't into singing the older Deep Purple songs. And now he's in Black Sabbath. He's like, I don't want to sing Black Sabbath and War Pigs and whatever.
Yeah. And he was one who, like, I think Iommi also, there's interviews with Iommi where he mentions that straight out, like even before it fell apart with Hughes. He's like, yeah, we're going to do like a couple of the classics and stuff, but I don't think, Hughes is really into doing this and that, like you can hear it right through the promotional cycles of all those.
And none of them are. I mean, when you think of Dio, didn't seem particularly into singing the Ozzy songs, and none of those guys really were. It just wasn't their thing.
Martin loves it. He lives for it.
Well, they got the right guy, And
yeah, he is. He's the perfect guy for where Iommi was operating at that point too.
And I mean, Hughes was also like can we just talk for a minute about how weird he looked during this period? He looked like Kenny Loggins in a Nosferatu jacket.
I always thought he had kind of like a George, like he was going for a George Michael look. Not that he nailed it, but he had that he had the stubble and the beard and the ear.
He did, yeah.
And the mullet and the trench coat. Like I didn't even when I saw pictures of it, I'm like, which one is Glenn Hughes? I didn't even recognize him when I first saw the pictures of the band. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, what? I said, he looked awful. That look was just, I mean, I don't know how much of his physical appearance was altered by drugs, but I mean, just like the haircut and the costume or whatever. Yeah, the style that he had was just like.
Yeah, because even Iommi takes a bit of that styling, but he's still got the kind of leathers and it kind of works still. He's got this weird like trench coat that he's always wearing.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't look like he looks like he's ready to go out the door on stage as opposed to ready to tear into a set,
like he's gonna have a friggin' umbrella and he's ready to go into a rainstorm or something. What is that look? Like he could have kept like the long parted hair in the middle and done like the fringe, coat like Iommi and done something really cool, and instead he just came with this really bizarre I don't know, like
that was weird
pop vampire look. I don't know.
Pop vampire.
It was really weird.
It was strange.
But I mean, it was a weird time for him. I mean, if he picked out his own clothes, like maybe it was just due to, I don't know, that weird point in his life. Like you said, he doesn't remember any of it. Maybe he didn't remember, remember when Eric Clapton had that weird phase, like in the late 70s, he would just go out into the stage with a friggin' rain poncho and just all this weird 2 different shoes and Anybody remember that he was like so fucked up that he just wear anything? Like
I don't remember it, but I can believe
No.
it, man. I mean, it's
Yeah.
no, I
terrible
read some
thing.
like I read some Clapton like stuff about Clapton. I was like really into him for a little while, and I just thought that was a fascinating period. Like in the mid to late 70s, he was just like so drugged out. He was just like one of the things that like he was known for around that time was just wearing really crazy shit on stage. You know, like you just like look at pictures
Ponchos.
of it. Yeah, he just has like a friggin' a rain poncho and like, you know, a
Yeah.
silly hat or something. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, maybe he's trying to reinvent himself like Dylan when Dylan had like the ghost mask on and like the big hats and stuff.
yeah.
Everybody wanted to be Bowie but couldn't get quite there.
Yeah, I mean, every artist of this era had their kind of worst look, and that was definitely that period for Glenn Hughes.
Yeah.
But hey, what are you gonna
He
do?
came
It was the
back from
80s.
it.
There's a
He
lot of
came
stuff
back
going
from it though. He looks more badass now than ever.
on. Oh God, yeah.
He does, yeah. Yeah. And people were saying that with Ray Gillan was, of course, took over, but like a lot of people just were like, "Oh, it's Hughes. Oh yeah, he kind of looks like he did in Deep Purple, yeah, because he does. He looks more like
Exactly.
'70s Hughes than
Yeah.
Hughes
Than
did.
80s Hughes.
yeah."
Oh man. Well, that is Seventh Star.
Is this a good one?
Ta-da. Ta-da.
Hopefully, the beginning part of this episode recorded.
Yeah,
We'll see what
we had a little bit of a
technical snafu in the middle there.
snafu, but
Yeah,
they
this
won't
was a-
notice.
Yeah, maybe the fact that I'm bringing this up now, they're saying his editing is so incredible. I didn't even notice.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm hoping that's
you
what
want to hear.
happens. We'll see what happens when I go through these files afterwards.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But Rye, thank you once again for joining us on the Deep
Oh, thank
Purple
you so much for
podcast.
having me, guys.
Yeah, it's
Always
It's
a pleasure.
blast.
always
And
a
yeah,
pleasure.
like I said, look, we went into another lockdown, so I was like, I got to do another album with these guys
There you go.
because it's always fun. You guys are pros. Appreciate everything you do, and yeah, keep on doing it, man. Keep on it. I hope you guys are
Back at
still
ya.
enjoying it. You're so far in. Like I checked out after a couple albums. The Aussie one that I did, I checked out at 2000. I'm like,
Well, Ozzy
Could
after
do
2000,
episodes
let's
about-
be fair.
Yeah.
Like, it's
No,
that's
you
hard.
checked out at the right time for that. I was like, please don't do the 2000s. And you didn't.
I would have listened to them, but honestly, I don't know. I would have been everything would have been learning because I
yeah, I could already see kind of a decline in the listenership. I was like, I'll switch up, just do some Sab stuff again. I'm happy to do either, so it's great.
Yeah.
And like I said, the thing I'm doing with Clay is great, just once a month, checking with that. But you guys are studs. Just keep it up. Whatever you need from me, let me know.
Awesome.
You're too kind. But before we go, I do have to thank our foundation level patrons. Almost forgot. At the $1 made up name tier, Els Murders, Spacey Noodles, The Phantasmal Leaky Mausoleum, Michael Vader, Stephen Somerville, The Concerto 1999 Fanatic, Raph Calf, Spike the Rock Cat, and JJ Stenard. Thank you so much to all of you for your support of the Deep Purple podcast. We appreciate it. And Rye, we appreciate you and everything you do for the Deep Dive Podcast Network and for joining our show. And
We should just keep like talking and like and then you just slowly fade it out. We'll just keep doing it. Just yeah, I really like that episode that you did before. Yeah, Deep Dive Podcast Network.
look at the
Just like fade.
the Seventh Star fade out.
Yeah.
Why not? Nate, do you think you can handle that?
I think I could.
I mean, you've already got enough work to do, so on today's episode.
That will be the smallest amount of production that I have to worry about given the state of this file here.
Thank you for listening to the Deep Purple Podcast. If you like what you hear and would like more episodes in the future, please donate on Patreon to support the show. You can also leave us a review in Apple Podcasts to help new people discover the show. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for show updates. See deeppurplepodcast.com for more details. Thank you for listening.